All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday night, so you know what that means. It's Sportswire Radio's weekly recap show to speak all the latest happenings in the world of wrestling. Later on in the show, we'll certainly get into the NFL and more. But here to join us and talk some wrestling, our resident wrestling analyst, a man who has also dabbled for a brief period of time in the world of wrestling. He is also the host of the Hockey Fan Chat, which you can hear on Sportswire Radio. We have a new link which we'll certainly present later on in the ticker for that. That is Mr. Randy Dillon. And Randy, happy Friday, my friend. And looks like you have a new hockey jersey. We'll speak maybe toward the end of the show about that. And how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Tom. How are you? It was a great week. The MLB playoffs you had, Raw
NHL
premiere,
started.
SmackDown premiere, NXT versus AEW. You had the start of the NHL season. What more can you ask for?
I'll tell you what. Well, the hockey one I'm looking forward to. Obviously, hockey, it feels like where has hockey been, especially if you're an Islanders fan or like you, a Capitals fan. We'll definitely get into that. But, I was going to start off with Roman return and knocking off LA Knight. But I have to talk to you about this meltdown that Tony Khan has had all throughout the week on Sportswire. And he is going back and forth with comments against the people on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And he's been almost kind of, I guess, almost like an aerobics class in terms of basically trying to distort the fact and even discredit the job that NXT did, because basically it was NXT almost 1 million, AEW 600,000 in the ratings. And you have to talk about, for those that are listening and watching, this Tony Khan meltdown when we got to see a taste of NXT versus AEW Tuesday night.
Well, we go back, let's say, when AEW and NXT first aired in 2019. Definitely, it was a tale of two stories. The new fresh face of AEW. NXT had some stars, but not the star power they had. But yeah, it was. I would say Tony Khan should be embarrassed of what he is doing all week, and still, I think to this
He's
day,
a billionaire. He's a billionaire. He went on Twitter, X, again, whatever you want to call it, just ranting and ranting about these ratings. Now, if he would have had the 900,000 and NXT would have had the 600,000, you know damn well he would have been like Tom Cruise on Oprah years ago, jumping up and down. And I don't get it. This is supposed to be a billionaire, and it's supposed to be above the fray.
Oh no, absolutely. It is starting to cause people confusion, cause people, I would say, concern, and it's destroying his liability as an own, not liability. I believe his, can't put my word on the tongue.
No, I think it is a liability. I think it's a liability.
Yeah.
It's a credibility issue because, you're supposed to be, this is your company, your family name out there. And could you imagine the Khans criticizing the NFL or the soccer and football leagues that they own? I mean, this is like, to me, way out there. I mean, I have a bunch of comments on this, and we'll certainly get into that shortly. But, I mean, this whole thing with Tony Khan, I couldn't think of Dixie Carter doing this. Eric Bischoff, even in his day, wouldn't have done this. Paul Heyman, when he had ECW, if you want to, on a lesser scale, Billy Corgan. I mean, not even Court Bauer, a man who I kind of have in a small way, a twisted relationship with in a very small way. Even him wouldn't have gone on Twitter, X, and ranted the way that Tony Khan did.
Oh no, absolutely. I think two things. One, it shows how out of touch he is with the wrestling world and at the product. You named off some of the promoters, the Carters, Paul Heyman, Eric Bischoff.
Court Bauer, I mean, Billy Corgan. It's
like these, even some like with AEW, with NWA, Impact today. Like, you don't see these guys going on Twitter complaining every week. Oh, my show is this or that. They try to put on the best show possible. This guy had the money to bring in the best talent possible.
And he's done that, and it's his fault, Randy. It's his fault. The buck stops here, right? It's like on Sportswire, right? If Sportswire is not doing well, they're not blaming you. They're not blaming Justin Gianelli, Rob Maraska, Neil Villapiano. They're going to blame me. So at the end of the day, he's the one that has signed all these talents. He just brought in Adam Copeland. I mean, so at the end of the day, it's his fault pretty much that his company generated 600,000 viewers to NXT's 921.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you got to give NXT their credit. You know what? In WWE, they brought up the big guns. John
Oh,
Cena,
sure.
Cody.
Undertaker came in NXT. Who would ever guess that? John Cena, Cody Rhodes opened the show. I mean,
LA Knight make the surprise
yep.
appearance. So WWE did really say we took it serious. We
Jade
took
Cargill.
AEW seriously. But at the end of the day, you put on, I would say, you put some great matches on. You put some product on. But the problem is, from day one, no consistency with the story.
We talked about that for two plus years on the show here in different incarnations.
No consistent advertising, I would say, with AEW as well. Like with WWE and living up here in Canada, they put a lot of ads on our premium sports channel, Sportsnet. Almost every program, hockey, baseball, basketball, whatever it is, you see a WWE ad come up. I don't see barely any AEW ads.
No, not during now. We have the baseball playoffs going on, and you don't really see on TBS. Hey, go watch Collision. Go watch Dynamite. You know, when you watch, let's say, Peacock, or you watch NBC or USA, you always see some type of programming. And conversely, Fox with SmackDown. I mean, I was watching the NFL and baseball this week, and they had commercials for SmackDown and AEW. You don't have that.
No, exactly. So you're out there with the Bucks dropped at him. He hasn't done a good job building up his performance. Has he put out some great pay-per-view shows? Absolutely. But hey, guess what? Once every 4 months, you can get away. If you try putting on a pay-per-view every month, which I think he wants to do, you ain't going to get viewers. It's going to be like WWE, some of WWE worth awful shows like those Battleground, the ECW Dismember to this Remember. I don't know.
Remember to Remember.
It's going to be some of those shows because you get
Barely Legal, Anarchy Rules. Sure.
You're not getting any of it. And I think this is even getting worse because, listen, at least Impact in the early 2005 to 2009 before Hogan showed up, they had good stories.
No, Impact, listen, I always say it on this show, and I don't just say it because our good friend Dean Allmark was in TNA for a brief cup of coffee, and the first American wrestler I ever interviewed, Chad Parham, wrestled Jeff Hardy on an old Impact taping, is if you looked back in that window for about 4 years, TNA was drawing over 1 million fans. They had a legitimate following. And Tony Khan consistently, because of the internet wrestling crowd, he gets a pass. And listen, I love what AEW does. I'm not knocking AEW. I'm not knocking the people that go there. I think it's great for competition. But he would have been jumping up and down if he would have won or drew close to them. And instead, some of the things he said about Shawn Michaels not winning Booker of the Year and going on and fighting with different people, you know, it shows to me that you're trying to deflect the criticism that you should be getting. It's you, Tony Khan, that has a product where you've bought all these WWE wrestlers that they let go for whatever reasons, and you can't correctly put them in the places. Look, I'm even going to go further in saying Adam Copeland, you know, we talked about this on the show. I feel like Adam Copeland, and this is where we're going to be verified. Tony Khan in AEW is not going to do what they did for WWE with Adam Copeland. I think that the rose is going to really come off the bloom real quick, and he would have been better off staying in WWE.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, and like you go back to some of Khan's comments, I'm even thinking like even guys like his veterans. I think Chris Jericho taking shots at WWE as well here and there when they've done something wrong. But if AEW does nothing wrong, it's kind of hush. Like he doesn't say anything. Where I think AEW's culture, the backstage, and hey, let's even go back to the whole CM Punk thing. Did Tony Khan kind of allow things to get to that point of
he did, and he allowed the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega basically to create an environment. It was either you were on their side because they were EVPs, or you were on Punk's side. Now, if I'm in that locker room, right? If I'm in that locker room and I'm looking to kind of keep my spot and stay in a position of relevance, who do you think I'm going to side with?
Oh, the
people
Young
in
Bucks,
power.
Jericho.
100%.
Exactly.
100%.
Like, I think AEW divided where if you're with someone in power or a Tony Khan's good book, you're gonna make well. Like look at someone like Jade Cargill and look at all the great work she did and
I
how
think
much
what WWE has
they
done
pushed her to
in
like she's becoming a megastar and she hasn't
I
even
was
done a
gonna
match
say the
yet.
same thing. Look at what Jade Cargill has been on. What? It's Fastlane, Raw, SmackDown, NXT. Right? She's been on 4 shows so far in what 2 weeks? Not even. And I feel like Jade Cargill is going to be pushed more than she ever was, even in that undefeated streak that she had in AEW. I mean, and you saw with Charlotte, which is what I said a few weeks back, with Charlotte and Jade Cargill. I mean, there is going to be money made with the kazoo with her because of her look, her ability, her experience. I mean, listen, WWE, this is my point that, it's AEW's fault. It's Tony
Brian Pillman
Khan's fault,
Jr.
most
Look at what
specifically.
they're doing with him since he's
Yep.
showed up. Like they're getting his name out there. Like they're trying to build these stars up where they're just not thinking, oh, we're gonna put you on TV. You can do good. We like you. Okay, we'll keep you going. But WWE, what they're doing is they're trying to push these stars up and push them on. Now I know it's
You
a
know
little
what the
different.
problem is? And I think Eric Bischoff had said this, and I'll get to comments in a second in one of his podcasts, that in AEW, it's almost like the inmates kind of run the asylum in a way. And what that means is that there's no order. Basically, everybody's kind of like doing things where there's no central line of command. WWE, yeah, go ahead, jump in.
I'm sorry. I'm going to add to that. I think there was order until Cody Rhodes left. I think Cody Rhodes was the only order in kind of keeping that company running in the proper direction.
Why do you say? Tell me why you say that.
Because I think Cody, even when Cody was there, they had some sense of storytelling. They had some sense of direction, using talent. He was pushing talent there. And I think even when Cody left, the Young Bucks even came out and said in Omega, oh, we never wanted to go to war. Cody was the one who wanted to go to war and push. We were just happy to be here. So I think Cody was trying to put this company on the direction and trajectory to become a top star company. But since he's left, I think that's really where things started really unraveling for the company.
That's an interesting perspective. Obviously, you can certainly see where Cody's gone and AEW's gone in some ways since then. And let me get to some comments here. First of all, I want to say hello to Skulls the Soul Hunter. He wants to say good evening. I'll get to Nick Aldis in a second. He also says Nick Aldis becoming the new SmackDown GM. I am going to get to that. Want to say hello to our friend Ron, who echoes the same comments. I'll get to that when the guys come on for a few minutes in baseball later. Anastasia Racina out there in California. I'm sure she'll be back on later for football. This is not really her spot. Isn't Nick Aldis just Mac? Yeah, I mean, from TNA, yes, we're going to get into that shortly. And he brought the WWE Avengers, and Tony Khan should focus on the Jaguars. Yeah, I mean, those are some good points. All right, so let's then talk about SmackDown real quick. I mean, obviously, ratings were what they were. I think most people at the end of the day anyway thought NXT was going to topple AEW. Bischoff said he thought it would be like 975 in terms of the rating. It was 921. So I think most people at the end of the day with NXT's star power over AEW, we've got that out of the way. So SmackDown, we have a new general manager, and it's an interesting one, in a guy, Nick Aldis, who has never wrestled in WWE, but you know him from places like NWA and TNA, where he has had a long, decorated career and been a world champion, a top guy, and he's here as a general manager, though, Randy. Why?
Yeah, it's a little interesting for Nick Aldis to come in as a general manager, or otherwise we know him as Magnet from TNA Impact. Definitely, I think it's an interesting move. I think this might be the right move for him because I think we saw with the return of Carlito, there wasn't nothing for him to do till they could get him back last week. I think this way, listen, get Nick Aldis on TV, get his face out there, and see how things go. And maybe down the road, eventually, we will see him in a ring. But I think this is a perfect opportunity to get the fans, get the audience aware, recognize that face before he's in the ring. Otherwise, who knows how long he'll be sitting on the sidelines for?
Well, do you think we're going to see him? Because, Adam Pearce was brought up during when Triple H came out. And Adam Pearce, again, was a legendary wrestler in the history of Ring of Honor. And we've never seen him in a WWE ring wrestle. Are we getting the same thing in a Nick Aldis? Are we not going to see Nick Aldis and he's just in this role as a general manager? Because I kind of think Nick Aldis, I don't want to say he sold out, but I kind of feel like it's like cheap on his part to come in. I mean, obviously, I don't want to like begrudge people. Maybe he wanted to be here, but he's here in a different capacity after everything he's done throughout his career just to be a general manager. Am I missing something?
The big difference between him and Pierce, remember, Pierce came in backstage first off, working backstage and had to get his way up. Nick Aldis was offered the same kind of path as Adam Pierce, but he turned that down and he went to NWA, I think, for a little bit before making the jump to W. So I think there might be more of a chance for him to show up in a ring, but it definitely is the same page of Adam Pierce. I would say definitely same plate, but I think the difference is Pierce was really doing the backstage for a longer time, where Nick Aldis kind of comes right away and gets on TV.
So I have to ask the question that some people eventually will want to ask: is Mickie James far behind?
This is a little bit of a tough one because I think we all remember Mickie James' exit with WWE, the whole trash bag.
But she came back, though, with the Impact World title, and they let her a few years back come into the Royal Rumble, though.
Mm-hmm. I guess, listen, history's shown us never say never when it comes to returns or surprises in WWE. Mickie James has been back in WWE, went back a while after being in Impact. I think, what are their opportunities going to be? Because, listen, you already have a stacked women's division with pretty much they had to put Becky Lynch on NXT just to get her some time, and I also think some recognition for that brand. But I don't know if you right now is there going to be a spot for her because you got the likes of Io Sky, Bayley, Rhea Ripley, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, Raquel Rodriguez, Liv Morgan.
But this could be the icing on the cake of a career. I don't think we would expect her just because I thought maybe the husband would be there. You'd want to at least have that element in a WWE ring with them together. That was kind of why I'd asked that question. Obviously, we'll certainly see when things come up.
I just don't see there any place for her right now unless it's kind of like, is she going to be an assistant to Nick Aldis? That's the only thing I could really
I don't see Mickie James being an assistant.
I think she wants to be a competitor, and I just don't see right now them giving her the spot for her on that roster to be kind of that, give that one little hoorah.
Yeah, no, I think that, and I don't want to say it, but her age certainly is probably a liability in the women's division to put her in a full-time spot. From their thinking, not my thinking, their thinking in WWE. But I did have to ask you that question, and we're here with Randy Dillon. You can follow Randy on Twitter and Instagram at Randy DHILO. And we've got about 10 or so minutes with Randy, then we'll transition into football and other things with the rest of the guys on Sportswire shortly. But Randy, I have to ask you, and so Roman Reigns is back, and he attacks LA Knight, and are we seeing the movement against maybe the head of the table? Is that what we're eventually leading to?
I definitely think so. I think is it going to be at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia? Are we going to push this more to the Rumble? Because we had a confrontation between him and Cody, Jay and Jimmy today as well. So a lot of big questions. I definitely think if LA Knight is truly the megastar, if he's truly the push, the people's favorite right now, over the moon, this is his opportunity to show up for him working with doing a program with Roman. Now, do I think he's gonna beat Roman? That's a little bit debatable, but I don't know if he's at that level there yet. But I think this is really the opportunity if you want to say LA Knight is a top tier guy and going to be the top guy for another few years. This is where his make or break going to be.
Well, if you pull the trigger at Crown Jewel, and Crown Jewel is in less than a month, if I'm not mistaken, right? So Crown Jewel is less than a month. I guess you theoretically could do a 6-man. If you mentioned Cody, there was a standoff there. Cody and Jimmy against Jay, Solo and Roman against LA with them. If Cena's around, maybe you could position that differently. If Cena's going to hang around, I actually kind of think Cena might hang around because of the strike that's still going on in Hollywood. So that's another thing that could change the discussion. But if you're going to go that route, would that mean, and we saw the Royal Rumble get pushed a little bit a few times, as I mentioned, throughout the premiere of SmackDown tonight on Fox, and it's last season technically because we know SmackDown's going to USA. Does that mean the Royal Rumble is where we could possibly see the movement against the head of the table?
I would think so if you really want to build up the story down the line, because Crown Jewel just too quick. You're not going to have enough.
I agree with that. That's why I said that. I think it's too soon.
Survivor Series, I think I've heard the report that it's now officially going to be War Games. So I could see a team with Roman versus a team with LA Knight, as you mentioned. And then, Roman's going to be in and out. So I think Royal Rumble is kind of your best bet to go. And then if LA Knight can keep this momentum going till Rumble, that would be something.
And what do you think of Kevin Owens now on SmackDown? What's your impressions of that?
That was strange. I was a little shocked to say that because I really thought they were going to announce the trade later. I think it's the right move because I think him and Sami Zayn as tag team, there's nothing more they can do unless they really break up the team, turn Owens heel, but I don't think they want to go down that direction. I could see Kevin Owens going maybe after the United States Championship at this point and taking that, but I don't see him having another match with Roman, but who knows?
And you liked how Carlito was introduced on SmackDown. Basically, they're going the angle, him and Bobby Lashley, and they referenced history there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you like how that was presented?
Not entirely, but I think it's good to get Carlito working with a guy he's familiar with. Him and Bobby have done plenty of matches in the past. There's a lot of familiarity there, so I think this is a great way to bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously something there. Both guys. I mean, I guess I kind of agree with you. I would have done it differently to kind of cheaply have him attacked right off the bat with him in the Street Profits with Bobby. I want to ask you one more thing, and I'm not going to ask you CM Punk for the umpteenth time, but you mentioned Survivor Series, and there's obviously some chatter out there. If you buy into it, that we could finally be seeing the Viper return at Survivor Series. Do you buy any of that? I mean, it's really been, I forgot what he looks like these days.
I don't know. They have been really hush on Randy Orton and his return. As we've heard the report, doctors are heavily advising Orton not to return, but I guess can he kind of get that one last hurrah moment if possible? I think there are some people Randy could definitely work with down the line, but I don't know. This is one of the decisions where it's like Daniel Bryan back in 2016, Edge and Sting. It's no longer about that one last kind of hurrah to the sunlight. It's more kind of, and Saraya, it's more at this point now, it's your future, it's your life. Do you want to continue your life after the wrestling, or do you want to take that one chance and unfortunately be maybe in a wheelchair for the rest of your life after?
Yeah, I mean, with Orton, I would certainly imagine that he has unfinished business, and I'd even throw it out there because who knows how long Cena is going to be here. And he spoke about the fact at the end of Fastlane in the press conference that, look, he's here right now. He's going to stay here until the strike ends, and I would have thought the strike would have been over already. And
there were reports it was.
Yeah, I mean, but it seems like there's still no promotion, no nothing. I think the writers were agreed to a deal, but there's still other things of it. So my point is that if the strike is not going to end and Cena's here, would you want to see Cena and Orton one more time for kind of, old sake?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a great way to go out having these two kind of have one last historic match for their long-awaited rivalry for them, really carrying the company from 2000
and Ruthless Aggression, yep.
And when guys like Taker, Shawn, Edge all had to leave, and Triple H transitioning to the corporate, and they really carried that roster for a few years until the talents of Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan really took their stand on this team. So definitely, I think John Cena and Randy Orton, we would love to see that one kind of hurrah. I think it'll definitely be a great moment, but it depends.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that seeing Adam Copeland, and I'm trying to get used to saying that now, Adam Copeland back, certainly Bryan Danielson, Saraya, those would be examples. If you saw the photo out there on X, that they're all back after everybody thought they would be done. Christian Cage, Randy Orton is certainly going to want to have something out there. And wrestlers, it's very hard to get wrestlers to formally retire. I mean,
Mm-hmm. And Tom, you got to remember with the likes of Saraya, Adam Copeland, Ed, Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, like these guys all really had long term off. Daniel Bryanson, I think, he was short as about 3 years. Saraya 5 year. Edge is about 9 years. Sting even Sting as well. He was out.
Yeah,
for
I mean, you
years,
could say Sting, but I feel like Sting, when he wrestles, it's like not the same as what those names you. It's like I don't want to use the term a garbage match, but he's like a garbage wrestler at this point. It's like he's not really taking the kind of bumps that he was taking, in his heyday. Certainly, I mean, yeah, he's in there, but it's they've done a very good. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but all the names I just named off, they were out for at least 3 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sting, yes, he was out for like 4.5, 5 years, and Bryan Danielson was out for like I think maybe 4.
Close to 4 because it was 2014. He had his last match, and he didn't come back till early 2018. So about 4 years, he was out. Saraya 5, Edge 9. So definitely with Randy Orton, and the only one you can really compare is Shawn Michaels with that back injury. He was out for 4 years. And that was early in his career.
Yeah, I think with Shawn, it was really, I think the age that probably helped him. Obviously, he was, I think, 32 or 33 and had the injury and then had the 4 years off. And, he kind of was able to pull it out. But certainly, again, not the schedule that they had in the early to mid-'90s when he was out there wrestling. And he was able to give us another, 5.5 or 6 great years. And I'm going to not count Crown Jewel because he had that one horrific
no one
match.
wants to see that about that.
I'm still trying to get used to Shawn Michaels and this like odd looking head he has now because I'm
still trying to get used to the baldness. That's my thing.
Yeah, I mean, the Undertaker, has, I think, done an okay job. He's certainly wearing the ball cap and the long ponytail, and he still looks it. But Shawn Michaels aged. I mean, I have to say he aged the worst of like any wrestler from years ago. I mean, Stone Cold looks phenomenal. He looks like, the same.
Even The Rock, they don't age. Like
the Rock, he's got more muscles now than he did when he left in the ring as a full-time competitor. Sting held up very well. Sting, I mean, the face paint, I'm sure helped, but he held up, Kurt Angle. Yeah, but Kurt got old in the face, but it's a fair point. Kurt Angle, certainly. And, but there were certain guys that, like Shawn Michaels that really just aged poorly. But obviously we could talk a lot about wrestling, and we'll certainly do that on the show again next week. But I want to give you the floor now, give you some closing thoughts, anything else you want to plug, share. Obviously hockey season has started. We'll definitely try to work that into the schedule here on Sportswire in the coming weeks. So I turn it over to you, Randy, and anything else you want to share or say, floor is yours.
Thanks, Tom. If you want to hear my wrestling or hockey opinion, give me a follow on Twitter at Randy Dillon, Dillon, DHILLON. I'll go from wrestling to hockey with wrestling. Listen, we'll see if Tony Khan's kind of whining rant continue and what they're going to do at Dynamite and Collision upcoming this week. How are these shows going to impact? Are they going to?
I think Collision's really in a lot of trouble in some ways. Not that they're in trouble to be canceled, because Saturday now in America is college football season. Then in Canada, you're going to have hockey season, night in Canada. So, I mean, I don't know what their angle is in terms of what they're expecting to kind of keep in an audience, because you got it really tough. In America, you got college football for at least another, I would say 2 months, maybe 8 weeks, and then you've got hockey night in Canada. I mean, you're like in a lot of trouble, I got to be honest.
And you don't have your big name CM Punk drawing you in now anymore, so definitely AEW, they're in a tailwind right now. They're going really south, so I'm really interested to see if Tony Khan can get a hold of himself and change some things up, or is it just you're just here because of your daddy's money bailing you out. So we'll see what happened there. In the hockey world, some teams have only played 1 to 2 games, not much to talk about. I know a lot of Edmonton Oilers fans are kind of freaking out getting clobbered by Vancouver 8-1, but only 1 game in the season. Let's wait about another week.
Yeah, I know.
More to talk about. Listen,
you can't get excited, really until obviously, and we just had Thanksgiving in Canada, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody in Canada. But you really can't get on a team. I don't want to say NHL Thanksgiving, but American Thanksgiving, but at least give your team 10 games. I think 10
Yeah.
games in this league, it's always 10 times 8. So give it, if you're 10 games, you're 2-7-2 or 2-7-1, I would say, yeah, that's when I would freak out a little bit.
Exactly. And then I recorded an episode on Sunday, but Monday with Justin Gianelli. I'm hoping to get that on a few days. Unfortunately, work's been a little busy, and
I understand. I have this virus that I have not been able to shake.
I've been feeling under the weather the last few days as well, so hopefully get some rest and we can get that out.
I'm on 3 weeks, man. I don't have COVID, but it's actually worse than COVID. The doctor actually told me you don't have COVID, but you're actually more sick than COVID. And I'm like, well, how is that possible? But here I am. So
stay healthy, my friend. A lot of vitamin C. Boil some ginger in some water. That always
helps. I'm trying that, but at this point, I've actually gone back to normal and things. But it's like because I just can't sit in bed anymore. But yeah, it's just one of those things. But we'll figure it. I hope you feel better. We'll definitely talk next week, and we'll look forward to seeing you. All right, that was Randy Dillon of the Hockey Fan Chat. You can follow him for his wrestling and hockey takes on Twitter and Instagram at Randy DHILLON. We'll see Randy next week, and he's here with us. One of the guys that we're looking for, that is Mr. Justin Gianelli. And Randy had just mentioned that he had recorded a podcast with you on the NHL season. A lot of exciting times for the New Jersey Devils. I'm sure you spoke about it, Lindy Ruff's contract extension. Well, I'm sure we'll hear that on the new link for Sportzwire Radio, because the old link, sportnarium.com/player, apparently my predecessor, I guess, took down the link, but we still have a backup link, and we'll certainly talk about that, I'm sure. And here with us also, probably to put out the pom-poms for the New York Jets. He's got the jersey on. He's the host of the Liftoff Jets, which we're going to play this weekend, Mr. Chris Bisea. Chris is also doing a great job for us with the Talking Rivals. I got a chance to hear what he and Patrick had to say, and happy Friday. And by the way, you like this angle or you like this angle? Which one you like better?
Kind of like triangle a little bit better.
You like this one better? Yeah, I think most people actually like it. Okay, so we'll keep it with that. All right, fellas, obviously we'll wait for the brute force Brad Weiss, who was here with us and then left because he probably was sad about the Liberty losing. I'm only kidding, but I guess I'll get into a few minutes of the baseball playoffs. And I have to ask you guys, I mean, the Atlanta Braves win 100-plus games. They steamrolled everybody in the National League East. The Los Angeles Dodgers, pretty much after, I want to say, the month of June, had firm control of the National League West. The Baltimore Orioles won over 100 games and had their best regular season since 1980. And two of these three teams didn't even win a postseason game, and they're all knocked out early in the postseason, and especially in the case of the Braves and Dodgers, once again. So I almost have to ask you guys, is the baseball playoffs like the biggest crapshoot of them all in all the sports, or what?
Sometimes it is, man. That's baseball, right? It comes down to who is hot at the end of the season and who's hot going into the playoffs, and that's what it comes out. I'm still shocked the Orioles got knocked out. I really did.
Yeah, you and Patrick really thought that Baltimore would get over Texas, and there was really nothing to have seen on Texas because Texas faltered really the last 2 months of the season. I mean, they really struggled after being in first place for 40 days or something at this point in the season, and they wound up losing the lead, and they swept Tampa, who won 99 games, and then they swept Baltimore. I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah, but that's the playoffs. That's what happens, right? Every year, this kind of thing happens, and I mean, I'm not surprised that the Astros beat the Twins, right? I mean, we can't be surprised at that anymore. The Astros, it's amazing what they've done now the last 7 years, make it to the ALCS. So, but
yeah, you guys were talking about it. It's basically a dynasty now. You have to say it's a dynasty.
I mean, we're never going to see like 3 straight World Series again. I don't think we're ever going to see that again, at least not for a while, with the whole salary cap and how the playoffs are now and all that stuff. Not salary cap, but the salary tax thing.
Right.
The luxury tax and
and the Braves, I mean, listen, they played the Phillies, and the Phillies beat them last year too. So it's not shocking that they lost.
You know what I think, and then we'll join with the brute force Brad Weiss, and we'll spend a few minutes on baseball before we'll go into some of these picks. We'll obviously recap some of that, but I was listening to Justin. I think it was maybe the Phillies Radio on Wednesday. I was listening to it on my way to an engagement, and I think there was some locker room chatter by somebody on the Braves that said something about Bryce Harper.
Yeah, it was
And
Orlando Arcia.
And maybe that was, in a way, the Braves in kind of giving the Phillies locker room material, and maybe that, in a way, swung the series, because that was the one series, the way the Braves came back down 4 runs, being no hit, and then they win the way they did. I had felt that Atlanta had the momentum in that series, and yet it was the Phillies, maybe motivated by those comments.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, Bryce Harper is probably the last guy you want to piss off. He certainly
Brad Weiss knows that better than anybody, because he's complained about Harper, and every time he's complained about him here in over 3 years, Harper always does something good.
Phillies right there. So
absolutely, I mean, Brad.
Yeah,
listen,
Harper took that to heart, and he had a big series. Nick Castellanos had a huge series as well. Had about 4 home runs over the last 2 games of the series. How about Trey Turner, who was 4 for 4 in Game 4? It was contributions from everybody from the Phillies. To me, the Phillies defeating the Braves was the least surprising. Based on what we saw last year and based off of, just how good Philadelphia is. I mean, Philadelphia is the defending National League champions. So as good as the Braves were this year and as good as the Dodgers were, until you knock out the Phillies, I mean, the Phillies were the team to beat in the National League. They were the defending National League champions, despite being a wild card for the 2nd straight year. And to me, I thought that was the most evenly matched divisional series. And to me, the Rangers over the Orioles, I think that was a complete upset.
Absolutely complete surprise.
Especially with the way Texas's pitching was in shambles,
Yeah,
right? With all their injuries. I really wasn't sure if they were. I thought what happened to the Dodgers was what was going to happen to Texas. And we saw with the Dodgers, to me, the Dodgers are the least surprising, and from the standpoint that they had no pitching left. Kershaw wasn't good.
Well, their starting pitching
in the postseason.
Listen, the 2 games in Los Angeles, their starting pitcher's ERA was 40.5. You can't win with a 40.5 ERA. 40.5 was their ERA.
It was Kershaw lasting a third of an inning. It was Bobby Miller getting shelled in the first inning again, and then Lance Lynn gives up 4 home runs in the 3rd inning in Game 3.
And he gave up 44 during the season.
Right. So that wasn't.
Their starting pitching. Now listen. Did things settle down in Games 2 and 3 with Miller? Even though he got pulled in the 2nd inning, and I think Lance Lynn went 4. But in Games 2 and 3, the Dodgers settled things down and only allowed 4 runs in each game. They could not hit. Mookie Betts.
I was going to say, to me, if I looked at the Dodgers and Twins specifically, the reason that they're home right now, getting ready to go on a golf course, is both of those teams, especially in their latter games, could not hit with men on base. I mean, the Twins had plenty of opportunities in Game 3. They couldn't knock them, and same in Game 4.
And the Dodgers had multiple bases loaded opportunities with 1 out. Yes. Arizona would find their way out of the jam. I mean, you want to chalk Game 1 up to anomaly and just Kershaw getting shelled, sure. But Games 2 and 3, it was about the Dodgers just not hitting. I mean, I know it's tough to be put in a 4-0 hole, but still, you would think a team like that can scratch and claw their way out of it, and they really just couldn't. And
so I have to ask, and the question to everybody here, and we'll spend a few minutes on baseball and go into football. And again, we're joined by the Brew Force Brad Weiss, and I hate to say it, but when you see, let's say, the Dodgers, I'm going to not say this about Snicker because I still think that the Braves won the World Series more recent. I don't think they'll make a move. But, if you're the Dodgers, right, it's 11 straight postseasons, and you've got only 1 World Series to show for it. You've got another early exit in the playoffs. How hot is that seat for a Dave Roberts?
It's got to be sizzling.
That's what I was asking.
It's got to be sizzling.
Yeah, it's got to be very warm right now.
I don't know.
They got to take a long look.
Why do you say you don't know the Brew Force, Brad Weiss? The Dodgers played a Diamondbacks team that really made back the complete definition of backing into the playoffs. And they really were pulverized by the Dodgers in the regular season. They were in the second half were a sub 500 team, and they were basically a collection of people that the average casual baseball fan has no idea who they are. And yet they swept the Dodgers, who have basically every single name player there is. Mookie Betts at the top of their lineup did absolutely nothing for them. Clayton Kershaw, a Hall of Famer, did less than zero. And you're to tell me that the manager may not be on the hot seat? That team should have won 5 World Series in 11 years.
Well.
You're voting for Kevin Span, who really should have, who was out the door after he lost.
Hold on there. Let me get my statement in, because I think Tom just made my point. Exactly my point about Dave Roberts. Because you talked about how flagrantly bad Mookie Betts was, because how bad
he was horrible. I was listening to the radio on this.
All the players that didn't perform, I don't think it says much on Dave Roberts as it really should be. I mean, I think the players didn't show up. I think Justin makes a good point about how in games 2 and 3, like where the heck were they? You got Corbin Carroll outplaying your best players who you're paying max dollars to. And listen, Corbin Carroll we know is a great player, and he's going to be probably the rookie of the year in the National League. I mean, that's probably not a question. But anyway, he's outperforming your best players who you're paying big dollars to. And then, listen, I'm not going to go too crazy really with the Dodgers, because I really didn't think they were that dominant of a team as they used to be. Like this year's team wasn't as the teams that they had in the past. You got like a mess at shortstop this year, between the shuttle that they had going on there. The outfield was kind of a mixed bag at times. You had Betts playing second base and in the infield. So I wasn't as high on the Dodgers, but at the same time, are they expected to beat the Diamondbacks? Yes. But I don't want to blame it as much on Dave Roberts. I'd like to blame the players for not performing. And listen, at the same time, Tom, I want to put this question out there, because I know everybody's going to be like, well, maybe so. But what better manager are you going to get right now? I mean, there's not exactly a plethora of managers out there.
I guess if you believe what you hear, and Justin mentioned it a couple weeks ago, Craig Counsell is an asterisk.
Yeah, but he's probably going to either back to Milwaukee or to the Mets. He sounds like that's.
But if you're talking about from the Mets standpoint, that's Dave Roberts has got a World Series on his resume and a win percentage of, above 600.
I'd shy away from touching Dave Roberts if he got let go by the Dodgers. To me, looking at the situation with the Dodgers, I think something has to change. You could say it's not Dave Roberts' fault that they're not hitting, but at the same time, why year after year do they fall short? At some point, it's got to be on the manager. All these 100 wins. All these 100-win seasons. Yes, I know they won the World Series in the bubble, right? The shortened 60-game season. They did
the COVID year.
And listen, I'm not going to take that away from the Dodgers. No. I'm really not. I'm not going to take that away from Dave Roberts. But at the same time,
but it's 2 World Series appearances in 11 years. 2.
3.
Oh, right, 3. Right. You got
17, 18, and 20. They went to 3 years, 3 and 4 years. So 3 in Roberts' tenure. They didn't go before that. Since
Mattingly was the LCS only. Yep.
Right, exactly. But at the same time, it's like, okay, now 3 of the last 4 full seasons, they've won 100 plus. I'm sorry, the last 4 full seasons, they've won 100 plus games, and each time, 3 out of the 4 times they got knocked out in the LDS. Now, why is that? Something clearly is wrong, and I don't think it's Andrew Friedman, the general president of baseball operations. I don't. I think the Dodgers are well run, and yes, I think they're struck by injury. I think this year was a lot more circumstantial than others. Kershaw
pitching.
Kershaw wasn't 100% healthy, but I mean, you were supposed to get Buehler back. That didn't happen. Urias had the off the field issue. Gonsolin and May went down mid-season. I mean, yeah, the cards were stacked against them, but
I feel like the Diamondbacks again backed into the playoffs. This was a team with a collection of young players, and I don't want to say no names, but even with the Dodgers' flaws, they should have won this series.
Absolutely, there's only one. There's only one pitcher that really you would think that would give you fits, and that's Zach Gallen. That's the one guy on the D-backs. You like, all right, if we
Kelly's pretty
lost
solid too,
to
right?
Gallen, so be it. But the others,
Kelly is solid.
I was hearing this
Yeah.
on MLB radio earlier. I think it was yesterday, and maybe there was something to teams like the Rangers and the Diamondbacks specifically. Phillies, Braves, I'll leave that out because yes, the Phillies are a little bit more evenly matched. They won the National League last year. The Astros I'll leave out because they're the World Series champions. Their experience, I'll leave those out. But maybe there was something, and Brad, you know about this because you've played, you've been in the postseason, you've tasted it. Before we move on to football, that the Diamondbacks and the Rangers were playing. They had to go out there and fend for their lives. So they were kind of warmed up, whereas teams like the Dodgers and Braves, you had to sit around for days. Reminds me also of, conversely, John Jay in 2020. John Jay had to sit out the early CUNY playoffs. They got the bye. So you had Levy injured, and then on top of that, you were sitting around doing nothing. And it's the same thing in baseball here in a sense because the Braves, and the Dodgers, the Dodgers and the Orioles, you sat around and you didn't play right away. You had to wait a week almost.
We've seen this.
Why are the Astros the only team unaffected by this? That's the real question. Why are the Astros the only team unaffected by this?
Because
they've
been there.
The Dodgers have been there too.
But you know what though? But the
Diamondbacks,
but they faced. But the Astros got the Twins. The Twins, nobody really saw them as a threat. The fact that the Twins beat the Blue Jays, that's a big deal for their franchise. They finally won a few playoff games. They got that monkey off their back. But the Astros had been there. In this case here, the Diamondbacks and Rangers had momentum. They were playing. That's
but if
the
you think,
I like
the second straight year.
I want to let Brad jump in, though. Justin, I got that. But, Brad, I want to let you jump in. Go ahead.
No, I like your point a lot. And I think you're making a great example of what happens in sports a lot. I mean, we kind of underestimate those things, but that happens a lot where, the team that kind of gets that, extra push at the end of the season, the one that's fighting for every game and working to get into the playoffs, gains a little bit of momentum. And that team, like you said, that's I like to say a little stale at the end of the season, kind of just playing the season out, not really putting it all out there, just kind of trying to get through the games. One team is obviously elevated than the other. And I think that that's something that definitely should be mentioned in this conversation. You got to give credit to a team like the Diamondbacks who fought hard at the end. I know they didn't play their best, but they had to win games. They had to earn games. Their schedule wasn't cupcake at the end of the season either. They had to earn wins. So I would say that. And, my last point, too, with Dave Roberts as well is that, listen, he won the World Series, right? I know that there's recent sample size isn't great. My thing would be, and I throw this right at Chris Pizzea, is that if somebody like Dave Roberts should be fired, Aaron Boone should have been fired a long time ago. That's all I want to say.
No, because
Dave Roberts. I know, and I understand, but I
understand your point, though. I
understand that the Dodgers have had probably more talent of recent. They're obviously a bigger franchise when it comes to being at the end, right? But at the same time, right now with what Aaron Boone's done, I mean, they're pretty comparable. Besides the fact that Dave Roberts has the World Series,
right? Here's my counterpoint to the having the rest going into the playoffs. The only team I'll agree with you guys on is the Orioles, right? Because they're a young team. They've never been in the playoffs. You got other teams that have veteran players that have been there and done that should know how to get themselves prepared for having 3-4 days of rest, right?
Yeah, the Dodgers and Braves are there every year, so they should be accustomed to it. So yeah, you're right on the Orioles for sure.
Yeah, so
you're right, Chris.
They lost, but
and the Orioles I think got hurt early because Texas jumped out to the big lead early on in the first game. So you kind of, you're a young team. And Brad, this about being in the playoffs when you were at SGLI, even that one experience, you get down early and it's like you're out of your game. You're pressing, you're trying to figure it out. And I think maybe that hurt the Orioles more than the Dodgers because we agree the Dodgers, right, they're veterans. They've been here before. But a team like the Orioles, but it just shows you that the Rangers and Diamondbacks, they were teams nobody really thought much of. Although I'm pretty sure Patrick, he certainly had, his thoughts on certainly the Diamondbacks.
And he had the D-backs before the season started.
Yeah.
He was telling me, that's my team. I think they're the team that's, I was like, what?
Yeah. And
I think a lot of people are like,
The year before, he said that about the Phillies. So
yeah. Well, he's
What's
always had like some wild.
We
Listen,
have
we
to
was
keep-
football
we have
with
to
him.
keep
He
our
was
eye on what-
What's crazy, Tom, is that
Yeah.
actually a friend that I know showed me a parlay that he put at the beginning of the year, and the parlay
Uh-oh.
had Texas winning American League and Arizona winning the National League, which
Oh
would be
my
absolutely,
God.
absolutely
Oh my
insane. If he won, he's going to win big dollars. But I hate to break the news to kind of end our baseball segment, and it kills
I do
me.
want to get to football. Yes.
It kills me, and it pains me to say this, ladies and gentlemen. The Philadelphia Phillies are going to win the World Series.
Wait.
Well,
No. You made a mistake. You should have said my beloved Philadelphia Phillies.
No, I cannot say that. I cannot say that. I cannot say that.
Talk for winning the World
Listen,
Series.
I think
It
Houston.
disgusts me to say this. It really does.
Steve
I know.
Phillips thought yesterday that Houston and Texas would go 7. I don't think that'll go 7, but as long as Houston's in there, it's very hard.
I
to
do
dethrone
think,
a champion.
you know what? If I had to say, I think the winner of the American League Championship Series wins the World Series.
I kind of agree with you on that because I think Houston and Texas are the better teams than Philadelphia.
I hope you're right.
Well, we'll find out. Obviously, we're here on Sportswire Radio, speaking all things related here in the world of sports. We spoke wrestling at the top of the hour. We're doing a little bit of baseball here. We're going to go transition right into football with 3 of my guys here. Justin Gianelli, who just gave me another baseball banter. Thank you,
Yes.
Justin. We're going to play that on Sportswire Radio starting tomorrow, along with your show that you gave us earlier in the week. And also we have the host of the Liftoff Jets, a very happy man, Chris Bizet, who was down there in Denver. And he's also now here with us. He's the host of the Talking Rivals show, also with Patrick Trotty. He almost reminds me of he's a gunslinger, Patrick Trotty. He's one of those guys that just goes out there and he just wants to throw it in terms of just who he likes to pick. He's got some, out there and about, but sometimes they work for him. And also Chris co-hosts with Sharman Phillips. Sharman's from Play Like a Jet. Sharman always talks with a very realistic tone about the NFL. And here with us, he is not so much a happy man right now at the New York Liberty, but we'll see if he gets a birthday present next week because his birthday is Thursday coming up here. And he is also the head coach of our Plainview Boys JV basketball team, 27th all-time in the history of rebounds for SJLI Long Island. He's also with Level Up and the Long Island Nets. He is the brute force Brad Weiss, and I am your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the number one global radio station, the Reverend Tom Bryson. If you like what you hear from us and want to watch prior Sportswire Radio shows, you can do that here. If you want to follow the brute force, I've actually put his links down there because he shared a few of our clips on Instagram, and a lot of people like to tune into those. And I'll have more coverage coming up here starting Sunday, 8 o'clock. I'll be with the recently retired C2K Courage to Kill. We're going to talk about his career that just ended. We'll do that here 8 o'clock, right in the middle of Giants Bills, because that's going to be a blowout. So obviously I figured why not speak with wrestling here with C2K for a little while, because that game is going to be painful to watch. And then I'll be here Monday afternoon with the Upgrade Calamajakes, or one half of the Nonstop Action Wrestling Tag Team Champions. Also stay tuned for more coverage later in the week and a few announcements ahead. But also I want to come back and say hello to our friend Ron. Ron says here he's back. Nice to see you. TBK is actually under the weather. He is not going to be here with us this week. He hopes to be back here next week.
He should be sick after what happened last week.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's what it is. Listen, maybe the Ravens and Orioles, and it was really, if you're a Baltimore fan, that was like the make or break sports weekend, and that was like probably not one of your favorite, memorable.
I was thinking maybe he didn't want to see my face after I called the Ravens overrated.
Well, you know what? I don't think that was that from what he had, communicated to me. But we hope to have him back next week. Rob Maraska, the contest man, says he'll be back. We wish him well. We'll see what happens. But we've obviously got a full slate.
He's
of
in
things
first too. The contest man.
Yeah, he is.
Rob Maraska's killing.
He's winning. He's up by 2 games. I mean, I really don't pay attention to this until, let's say, 6 weeks from now, right? Well, that would make us week 12. That's when you really, now you could. It's anybody's game. I think there's a bunch of us that are separated by, I think, 7 or 8 games.
I'm pissed I missed that 1 week. That really just.
Well, that 1 week, if you figured, that 1 week, let's say you would have won 7 games, right? You would have had 30. Even if you won 7, you'd be still within striking distance.
Yeah.
Now. If you won
I will
10,
say 2 other people missed this week, Justin. So you get yourself back out of last place. I was looking at
that. Even though I started off on the wrong foot with last night.
Now let me guess. Billy McInerney's won?
I believe so, and TBK.
Well, then, That's probably why. That's probably why.
Why don't
he's
we
not
do
here
that?
with
How
us.
about this?
No,
We can
Billy
put this
Billy
on a
picked.
vote.
Oh, Billy picked. Okay.
How
Anthony
about we do
Finkel,
this?
did he pick Anthony Finkel, the napkin?
Yeah, he picked.
Guys, how about
Okay.
this?
Guys.
Since Justin missed a week and TBK, you said missed a week, or
Yeah.
why don't we
Yes.
give them so that they get a chance to stay in it? Why don't we give them the average of their picks and give them that number for the week that they missed? How's that?
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
I
No,
don't just
listen.
be fair. I mean, because
No, I see it for sure. By the way, we'll definitely make a change next year. That's part of the evaluation here. We got to see how it works. But to make it clear, all I want to say right now, because I have to say it with my chest and proudly, because Tom, it's been a little quiet around here on this show from a man who used to chirp me a lot and had a lot to say last year when everything was going good for him. But yet things are a little turbulent for a man named John Gonzalez right now, who is currently 10 games under 500 in the picks. And he hasn't been here for weeks. So I just want to make this clear that there's a little bit of silence from John Gonzalez. And I think
is he under the alias King of Picks?
That's him. Yeah,
Yes.
34.
Don't look like the king right now.
Well, I guess, Brad, you would certainly enjoy the Depeche Mode song "Enjoy the Silence" because you enjoy the silence of John Gonzalez, which is not a bad song. I mean, I wasn't a big Depeche Mode fan, but that's actually a decent song.
We said it from week one. Anybody who wins besides John Gonzalez, that's a good accomplishment this season. So far, so good.
I think we'll certainly see it. And looking at the picks here, I mean, John is still. I'm not going to, dance on his grave. He's still alive. I mean, obviously he needs some big weeks, but the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, I mean, you're still 8 games back. I mean, of all people, you're
I am. But with that being said, I was 8 games under 500 a few weeks ago, so I've climbed a little bit. We got
but I also said weeks back that you would see people's win-loss records kind of catch up because as the season goes on, you start to kind of figure out teams and kind of say, okay, well, that's a game I'm going to pick because of obvious reasons. So I think it's a little trickier the first 3 or 4 weeks. So when you go into the later weeks, you kind of have a sense of where we are. And also, Ron wants to say before we pick, Baltimore should be embarrassed. Eagles are overrated. I want to say hello. Speaking to people from Australia, 1:00 Eastern time, Mr. Ace Reed, who I'm not sure Ace, the host of the Wired Up podcast, is an American football fan, but he can certainly chime in if he wants to. But obviously, John Gonzalez not here with us. He did like our post. Rob Maraska is in first place with a very small 2-game lead. Billy McInerney, 41-37. He did pick, correct, the Brute Force Brad Weiss.
Yes,
he picked. TBK did not pick, actually. TBK did not pick. He is one of the people that did not pick. And I see here, I think, who's Book It here, by the way?
Who's Book It?
That's Patrick.
Patrick Trotty didn't pick. So there you go. Patrick Trotty and TBK.
My goal is to get back to 500 for the season by the season's end.
That would be a very big accomplishment.
So I'm 26 games under. I would need to be an average of 2 games over for the rest of the season, a week.
That's not bad. I mean, I think it's certainly doable.
Get
But
that.
obviously, but let's get into some of these games here, the Brute Force. Obviously, I was the unlucky one that picked Denver, and they lost by 11, and the pick was 10.
Yeah, me too.
Because I had a feeling Denver was actually going to be competitive there, but that's
I
kind
had
of how.
I had a 27-17 kind of deal. So that's why I got it was like that hook for me. Give me that 10.5 number to get that 10.
There was a couple of them this week that I was like, well, that's a big spread. What should I do? And but we'll certainly go into some of these games here. So the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, let's go into a game that I'm sure you're going to have some interesting takes on. That is the San Francisco 49ers and the Cleveland Browns to lead things off. The San Francisco 49ers looked very impressive last week on Sunday night against the Dallas Cowboys. He was certainly proven right to some extent against the Cleveland Browns, who, again, are kind of in the middle of the pack of this kind of very contested AFC North. And it's San Francisco 6-point favorites here on the road, 1:00. Now, obviously, I know you're torn here because you're thinking about San Francisco early start time on the road. You're thinking about Cleveland. It'll be a loud crowd, good defense. San Francisco doesn't play a lot of 1:00 games, so I know that's why you're going here with the Cleveland Browns at home. So tell us why you got the upset special.
Absolutely not. Okay, let me just put it that way. All right, if this was like Deal or No Deal, I would say no deal to your persuasion. All right, please.
I did try out to be Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, so I actually.
All right, so let's put it this way. All right, listen. At first, I was going to have some interesting things to say, and then as soon as I heard Deshaun Watson is not playing, there's nothing that's interesting about this game anymore. I know Cleveland's defense is good. I know they've been solid, but. The San Francisco 49ers, in my opinion, are the best team in football right now. They're firing on all cylinders. They just beat down the Cowboys. Brock Purdy is playing amazing. We talked about McCaffrey last week being a MVP candidate for this season. They're amazing, the 49ers, and I just think they're going to roll again. And, I think it's who is it? PJ Walker starting, I think, for Cleveland or something. That ain't going to excite
for wrestling fans, that sounds like an old jobber in the loses on the old Monday Night Raws back in the day.
That is certainly not going to get me to want to first pick them. And second, with PJ Walker starting, I think this 6-point spread is a piece of cake. Give me that easily with the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, I think people are going to feel comfortable with that likely. And Chris, again, San Francisco certainly has been dominant. They have certainly chest thumped in their undefeated, being one of the only 2 teams so far in the league to continue to enjoy that. But Cleveland is at home, and it is a 6-point spread. But what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think with Deshaun Watson, this game could have been interesting. And especially with the way he played that final week before he got hurt, he was playing better. I can't see PJ Walker beating San Francisco. I mean, this is the best team in football, like Brute Force said. I mean,
watching them Sunday was like
it's unreal.
They put on pretty much a class.
I don't see any team stopping this team. I think the only thing that's going to stop San Fran is going to be themselves with injuries and stuff like that.
Well, I think the follow-up would be, do they get home field? Because remember, last year, Philadelphia had the game in their building.
Well, San Fran and Philly play in a few weeks, so we'll see.
Yes.
Well, that might determine it, but Philly's got a tough schedule coming up, but we'll get to them when we get to them. But
we're going to definitely get to that's going to be the last game because they're playing the Jets. So we'll talk about that.
I'm going to take San Fran to cover. I think it's just too much with PJ.
All right, fair enough. I think you're going to be right on most fronts, and I'm sure you and Sharman will do a great job on talking about that, and I look forward to listening to that this weekend. But Justin, again, San Francisco 6-point favorites on the road. They've been very impressive. Cleveland dealing with some injuries, but they've played kind of probably where they are, and mostly everybody is in the AFC North. And what's your thoughts?
I feel like Vegas is trying to tell me something here with this 6-point spread, knowing full well that Deshaun Watson was never going to play this week. I feel like Vegas is trying to bait you into taking the Browns, but I'm not buying it here. I just don't trust PJ Walker. I think he'll play better than Thompson Robinson did last week. He looked completely lost. I'm sorry, 2 weeks before the bye. He looked completely lost, but the Browns just are not going to be able to keep up with the 49ers, and I know their defense is good. Myles Garrett's going to be a handful for that offensive line, but the San Francisco offensive line is really good. So offense, defense, special teams, I mean, it is a huge advantage for the 49ers. And I think they're going to comfortably win by a touchdown. I like the 49ers here.
Yeah, and I think that, again, because it's 6, if it would have been like 8.5 or 9 on the road, I think I would have certainly at least thought about it. But it's hard to bet against San Francisco. I mean, this is one of those. It's hard to bet against them right now, the way they're playing. And you can't do it. I mean, maybe if like you're in like the last week of the season, you're competing for a championship or something like that in your league, that would certainly make sense.
I just don't see a weakness on that team. I don't.
And the Yahoo projections are 88% San Francisco, 12 Cleveland. What is that? That's one of the more lopsided ones you're going to see. I'm like everybody else here going with the San Francisco 49ers. They certainly have super expectations here. But the Brute Force, let's go to another interesting matchup. There is a few good games in the 1:00 hour, and one of those games, I don't want to say it's a make or break for the Cincinnati Bengals still, but obviously the Bengals have some work to do. Obviously they're looking at a bye coming up, but they have one more game coming up here against the Seattle Seahawks, and Seattle has obviously been pretty impressive so far, and they've repeated things here with Geno Smith, and boy, he has certainly looked better than Russell Wilson. I mean, Denver is basically a colossal meltdown right now and the turmoil they're in, but that's for a different topic, different show. But it's kind of still a must-win for the Bengals as they're in the middle of this pack here in the AFC North. And they are here 3-point favorites at home, though, against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I'm really curious, the Bruford, because part of me does say, because you're trying to make up ground, you're 8 games back, that you're going to pick Geno Smith, obviously an old friend of yours. You were always a big Geno fan when he was a Jet. You used to always love when Rex would put him out there. You were always so excited seeing him in the offense and run the wishbone. So I know why you're going to put the upset alert on the board here and go with the Seattle Seahawks, because they're only a field goal underdog here against the kind of, I don't know what to make of the Cincinnati Bengals these days.
Well, Tom, you're 0 for 2 tonight so far. With your persuasions. First of all, to say that Geno Smith is my friend all of a sudden, I mean, well, when did this happen? I mean, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, you did. You liked him as a Jet.
I don't know. We got to go back to the SoundCloud recordings, all right, to see if I said that.
Point. I got to go back. But they're out there still.
But anyway, I am taking the Bengals. I will say I did have to think about it a little bit. Because I do respect Seattle, and I do think that they played really well this season. They're still a team that I think can make the playoffs this year, obviously. With that being said, though, you said it, and I know we've had said this before about Cincinnati having to win games, but they really need to win this game because if you look at their schedule after the bye, it is bad. They got San Francisco, I believe, right off the bye. They got a few other opponents. They're going to be tough for them.
I think still they have on the schedule.
Yeah, they got a lot of.
And then home against Buffalo.
Yeah, that is brutal out of the bye. So I think that this home game means a lot to them. They got to win this game. I think Joe Burrow looks a little more healthy as the week went on. So I do like him to do better this week against Seattle. And I do like them at home in this matchup. So I'm going to take Cincinnati -3.
Well, I'll certainly get my thoughts on that. They might be similar to yours, Brad, but Chris, again, this was I think a tough matchup to pick because Seattle is a good football team and they've got some good wins in their resume. They've been good on the road, and Cincinnati's been, I don't want to say a disappointment yet because 2-3 can very much come back. And last year they got off to a slow start, but this is another one of these, I guess, aerobics class like must wins for the Bengals, and they've certainly not played up to par so far. So what's your thoughts here? They are 3-point favorites at home. It's a 1:00 game against Seattle. And what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Cincinnati's, back on track. I mean, they did beat Arizona, so that's not the most impressive victory. But just to see them score points, that seems like
they did. Yep.
Yeah. So that part made it look good. But I tell you, I like Seattle getting to 3 here. Seattle has, since that first week where they lost to the Rams, they've won 3 straight. And you know what? They've won tough road games, right? They beat Detroit in Detroit.
Yep.
I didn't think that happening. So I like Seattle, man. Seattle's a really good team, good defense. And like you said, Geno's been playing great. And there's weapons on offense too. So he doesn't have to do everything there. So I like Seattle getting the 3. I don't know if they'll win the game, but give me the points.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are going to pause about this. And Justin, again, Seattle is a good football team. I mean, Geno Smith, where was this when he was a New York Jet, or where was when he was a New York Giant even? I mean, he has really had quite a turnaround to his career. And the Seattle Seahawks are kind of quietly right there, 3-1 in the thick of the NFC. And Cincinnati, and they're struggling, and they definitely need a win here at home to kind of keep themselves above water in this kind of very difficult AFC. And what do you think here? 1:00 matchup, Bengals 3-point favorites against Seattle.
Yeah, the Seahawks really did a nice job bouncing back after that opening week loss to the Rams by winning 3 straight going into the bye week, and the Bengals seem to have righted the ship a little bit last week. I know they played Arizona, but the Cardinals have been a tough, competitive team despite being 1-4 early in the season. The Bengals are playing better. Burrow looks healthier. And you get T. Higgins back this week, it looks like. And I just think Seattle's defense is just not capable of covering Higgins and Chase. I do think the Bengals win this game, and I do think they cover the 3 points. But, Seattle's going to play well. It's taken years for Geno Smith to mature into a decent quarterback, and he has. And I think they should be able to put up some points. But ultimately, in the end, I think Cincinnati is just a better team.
You think about it with Geno Smith, and it does happen. I mean, Rich Gannon was an example. I'm sure Chris remembers him, where it took him a long time. And then when he got started, I mean, he turned out and having, I would say, a decent career. Jeff Hostetler would be a name that, when certainly Sims went down, he was a career backup. And then he wound up having, some good years. I mean, there's certainly quarterbacks that you could say in history that maybe didn't get off to the starts in their career and wound up having, I don't know if it was what they were expected to be, but
Jim
certainly
Plunkett is
wound
another
up.
one.
What's that?
Jim Plunkett is another one with the
Yeah,
Raiders.
Jim Plunkett, that was another one. Certainly, you could have went back and thrown in there a guy that took him a while, but he wound up having, a pretty good career. I mean, so there are certainly examples of quarterbacks out there. I mean, if you really want to go out there, I mean, Tommy Maddox even was a guy who was in the XFL and had a couple years with the Steelers. So there are these examples.
Warren
So I
Moon.
mean, yep, there you go. Doug Flutie.
Right? Yeah, they had to go to the CFL and then they came back. So
he had, a good 4 or 5 years. So I guess it's not unusual as people think, but it's certainly credit to him and the Seahawks. But, I had thought about going with Seattle here, but Cincinnati at home, 3 points. I kind of feel like this is a must win for the Bengals. So, I mean, it's kind of like if it was in Seattle, I think Seattle would have just blew out Cincinnati. But just because of their home, the 1:00 start time, you like what you saw from Burrow last week. Maybe he's starting to get into kind of the shape that he needs game playing wise, and he's looking to that bye week, and he needs that bye week. That's kind of probably why I went with Cincinnati pretty much, and that's kind of where I'm like most of the people. Although, again, Yahoo at 69-31 Cincinnati. I would have thought it would have been a little closer in projections, but we'll certainly see. But the Brute Force Brad Weiss, let's go to another matchup that I think is really fascinating in AFC South one, in the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Indianapolis Colts. We all thought that Buffalo last week in London, except for Justin, I think, had said, Buffalo would run over Jacksonville. But Jacksonville, maybe because they had been there a couple weeks, they were familiar that extra week and, getting used to the time zone, maybe that played a role into, but they got a big win and kind of launched their season a little bit here again in an AFC South where, I think 9-8 probably wins you the division again. And you look at it right now, it's a battle for first place. The Colts have played a little bit better than expectations were maybe thought about. And they had some injuries. I think Anthony Richardson got injured. Gardner Minshew came in again, and they were able to find a way to get a win. And, there's going to be a tough one for you, the Brute Force Brad Weiss, because the Jaguars are 4-point favorites at home. But, you like what you see from Gardner Minshew, and you see the Colts, and, you're thinking about this Colts football team, and they're a good team, and it's a battle for first place in the AFC South. And that's why, as an underdog, you picked the Indianapolis Colts. And tell us why you put the upset alert on the board.
Over 3. All right, because you're having a rough day at the plate, Tom Bryce. All right, listen.
That's been my week, but I have a virus for 3 weeks. I was actually told by the doctor that I don't have COVID, but I'm actually more sick than COVID. So that's kind of been my last 3 weeks.
Interesting there, but not good in the end. But listen, let's just talk about the Colts because I know you said they're playing better, but they're not good. In my opinion, it is not a good football team. Again, they've carved out their wins and
they're 3-2,
competitively played.
They don't have to be a good football team.
But again, come on, let's just do the eye test here. We watched them play.
Yeah, I've heard this before. They always say
so
this
to me, Jacksonville did show me something against Buffalo. I saw Trevor Lawrence start to play better. I saw ETN absolutely kill it, which was great to see. So I really see those two combination, and I see that having success again this week in Jacksonville. I do think that Jacksonville has a level of urgency to win at home, especially after the last time we saw them there. They got stampeded by Houston, which was really bad. So I think they're going to go home to their actual home, not London, but their actual home, okay? And I think they will get to that Florida sunshine and win a game. So I do like them here. The 4 points did make me a little nervous, but I'm going to take them with the 4 points.
All right, Chris. I mean, the Jaguars, if you leave aside the Houston game, I guess they have been okay. Yeah, they're 3-2. They're in first place. They are where they should be. It's not been an impressive season so far, but they do have the win against the Bills, who are coming in with 3 straight very impressive wins. But it is a battle for first place, and the Colts, I think, have played a little bit better than I think people anticipated. Certainly far better than where they were last year at this point. But it is a battle for first place, and Jacksonville is 4-point favorites at home. And what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it this way. Indianapolis is coming in. Gordon Minshew, we all know he had the nice run in Jacksonville. That's where he got Minshew Mania going. So I'm sure he's going to come back, and I'm sure he's going to want to play well in Jacksonville. But I think after last week, maybe Jacksonville starts to get on a roll and gets back on that roll that they were on last year when they went into the playoffs, and they almost, came out and beat Kansas City in Kansas City. But I like Jacksonville here. Maybe ETN could get a little more consistent. He's been like in every other, week. He has a big week, so maybe he could put together 2 in a row here. So we'll see about that. But I'm going to take Jacksonville. It's 4 points. I think they could win. Yeah. I think they could win by at least a touchdown.
All right, fair enough. And I'll say hello to Joe Dell in a second. Of course, the legendary Joe Dell is Sleepy Hollow. And obviously, Joe, your cousin Rob is not with us. We'll see if he's back next week. But Justin, again, Jacksonville Jaguars maybe have gotten back on track, I suppose. Colts, though, I think have played, kind of a little better than I think most people around the league anticipated. But Jacksonville is 4-point favorites back technically at home in the state of Florida. And what do you think here in this matchup?
Yeah, the Colts played some inspired football early on under new head coach Shane Steichen. Obviously, they've had to deal with the injuries to Anthony Richardson multiple times this year. And Minshew's a solid backup, that's for sure. However, I think last week was really a good potential turning point for the Jaguars. And I think that this is where they start to kick it into gear. And I think that starts this week. I think they'll run the ball well with ETN. I think Calvin Ridley will have a nice game. Zay Jones, Evan Ingram. They got a lot of weapons on offense. And I think that defense will force Minshew into a couple of turnovers. And that 4-point number is definitely a number that I like for Jacksonville. And I think they probably win by at least a touchdown.
All right, I'll read Joe's comment off before I come on here. Nice shirt, Chris. No one wearing one is a poser, I think he meant. I'm pretty sure it's a Jets one. Back in my day, there were 2 different kinds, green or white. Nowadays, there's like 30 of them. So I think that's Joe's take. Good take, I guess. I mean, I hadn't really thought about it, but then again, that's for a different conversation, a different time. I had thought about actually going with Jacksonville here, Brad, but I'm going with the Colts because I don't know if the Colts will win the game, but I think the Colts will make it competitive because you actually made the point that I was thinking about. Gardner Minshew Mania, he's coming back to Jacksonville. He's motivated. And the Colts have played a little bit better than I think anybody expected them to, and it's a battle for first place. So you have to throw everything out the window. It's a rivalry game. And, has anybody really been that impressed with Jacksonville so far? So I don't know if they outright win the game, but because the spread is 4 points, I went out and said, you know what? I'm gonna go with the Colts because I think the Colts have played, and Justin also said they've played some inspired football. So I kind of think here, I don't know again if they outright win the game, but Jacksonville has struggled this season. I think that's really been, yes, they're in first place, but it's not been, as impressive. And if you look at their point differential, it's +3. So Jacksonville in 5 games so far is a +3. What does that tell you? If you divide it by 5, that this should be a close game. And the Colts also, by the way, are a +5. So I kind of think here that this will be a tough game to call. And I think that's why I'm going with the Colts. So that's certainly my take. We'll see whose take is right next week on the show. But the Brute Force, let's go to another interesting matchup. We'll go actually swing back abroad. And let's go to our old friend TBK, who's certainly not here with us. Obviously, I'm sure he's biting a few nails because his Baltimore sports season is over pretty much. And we'll see about his football team, the Ravens, in a second. But the Tennessee Titans and the Baltimore Ravens, the brute force Brad Weiss. And, the Baltimore Ravens are 4-point favorites. Now, it was from 3.5 to 4. And you're thinking about this, the Titans desperately need a win. And, some people say now, Lamar Jackson, he struggles out there and he made some, some bad passes, some turnovers, and he couldn't really handle a Steelers defense, which I kind of called here last week on the show, and I was laughed at by you. And I'll get into that later on in the show. And you say, what, the Titans with Derrick Henry, they've got a coach that's motivated, and they've been in almost every game they've played. Maybe this is where you finally pull the trigger and go with the upset. So tell us why in this particular case you see a wounded animal, which is literally a wounded animal in the Baltimore Ravens, while you're going with the Tennessee Titans to drill you an upset.
All right, TBK. I apologize, TBK. All right, because listen, I tried. We teamed up last week. All right, we teamed up. We got hyped. We slipped out a few words that we normally don't. Okay.
Well, you were okay. He did more so.
Yeah. So we got all hyped up, and then of course the freaking Steelers won. All right, and we'll get to them later, all right, because that was just devastating. But anyway, in this game, I'm actually going to do this, Tom Rice. I'm going to take the Titans with the 4-point spread here. I actually still think Baltimore is going to win the game. I just think that because the game is in London specifically, I think because the game is in London, I think this is going to be one of those games. Both teams are going to be somewhat jet lagged. They're not going to have a lot of experience in London. I think it's just going to be one of those ugly, nasty, low-scoring games like Tennessee likes to play. And if that's the case, I think Tennessee's going to stay in the game. And I just think that in the end, I think Baltimore squeaks it out, but I don't think it's going to be by a lot. It might be by 1, 2, maybe 3. I just don't think that Baltimore is going to beat them good. So that's why I'm taking Tennessee with the spread of 4 points.
And the weather there is going to be 52 there. So it's probably going to be about 50 for kickoff there. So that's kind of be, Brad, that type of like late fall type of weather there that you're going to get. So that's a interesting point. And Chris, again, Baltimore is in first place, and maybe Justin's right to use Joe Dell's word that they're kind of the first place poser team. They're, posers maybe. They struggled in certain times. Lamar Jackson did not look impressive at all last week, especially in the second half with some of the decisions he made against the Steelers. I know TBK thought differently, but I watched the game actually, and I thought that it was Lamar Jackson who made some very questionable decisions, and he did not have a good game, especially with a Ravens team that controlled that game for most of the point. But Tennessee, again, they could, with some luck, they could still win this division. This division is really another weak division. They're also a -5 this year, but again, Baltimore is 4-point favorites. It's one of those ugly type football games. Brad is absolutely right. This is going to be an ugly type game probably to watch in London. And what do you think here?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if Tennessee's going to win. I mean, it's 4 points.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ravens.
Tennessee games are close. Every Tennessee game, I feels like it's like 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. They're only a -5 this year, actually.
I agree. And you know what? I think if the Ravens, if they're gonna get into that conversation about, I don't want to call them Super Bowl contenders, but a playoff contender, one of the better teams in the league, this is the kind of game that they got to win. And I'm not talking about by a late field goal. They got to win by at least a touchdown. So, and I think because last week they should have beat Pittsburgh. They're a better team than Pittsburgh.
I watched the game. Baltimore controlled that game for the majority of it.
Another game. It makes no sense. But so I'm gonna go Baltimore covering. I just think because they got to get on some kind of a roll. They have to do something here. So I'm gonna go Baltimore covering.
Justin, again, it's an interesting matchup because Tennessee has been kind of up and down, and they are, I guess, alive in a weak division, and Baltimore is in first place, but you kind of almost feel like you said, they're fake, they're imposters. They are kind of really not in the same category as teams like certainly the Chiefs and the Dolphins in the AFC. And tell us what you think on this matchup.
Yeah, it's gonna be a definitely interesting matchup here. Obviously the Titans are going to need to run the ball with Derrick Henry, but what people aren't really talking about is how good DeAndre Hopkins has been for the Titans early in the season. And he's really found that stride and that chemistry with Ryan Tannehill. And I like the Titans in this game. Honestly, you get the +4. So if the Ravens do win by a field goal, I still get my cover. But, I'm going to go as far to say I think the Titans win this game outright. Again, there are so many things that I just don't like about the Ravens, and it was evidenced last week, right? Their offense just was dreadful last week.
Absolutely dreadful.
Against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And listen, the Steelers, I would say they have a pretty solid defense, but I think they're not as good as we might have thought early in the season defensively, and they played a tremendous game and were really able to shut down Lamar Jackson. Obviously, we know the running game's hurting without J.K. Dobbins. And Jackson doesn't seem to be doing too much of his own self-running. So you keep him in the pocket. I think you really could do some damage, and I think the Titans are going to win this game. So I'll take him with the points, and I'll go as far as say I think they win.
Yeah, you know what? I went with Tennessee, and I kind of think they might win this game because, again, it's in London. It's going to be 52, so that means it's probably there. What's it, 2 o'clock their time? 2:30? Yeah, probably be about 50 degrees there in kickoff. It's going to be an ugly type of weather game. And who does that favor? A team that can run the ball a little bit. I mean, it's not going to be terrible like in raining there because it does rain a lot in London this time of year. But I just think that it kind of, in a way, like, I don't know about Baltimore anymore. I just... I know TBK, if he comes back next week, and he's going to probably be, and, not happy to hear it. But you know what? I think a lot of people are down on Baltimore, and I think it's going to be up to them. But I don't know if this is the matchup. I think it's going to be a close smash mouth type of game. And I went with Tennessee because of 4 points. It's only 4. So even if Tennessee doesn't win, and it's, let's say, 20-19, that's kind of where the smart pick goes. That's kind of why I went Tennessee here, but the Brute Force Brad Weiss, let's go to maybe an easy matchup to pick. We'll actually do something easy, and that's the Miami Dolphins and the Carolina Panthers. Now, obviously, I know this is where you're definitely going the Carolina Panthers because you said, 13.5. You thought automatically, it's high. Let me go here and go with the odds, and that's why I need a win. I need to make up some ground. I'm still 8 games back, and that's why you're putting that upset alert on the board. So tell us why you've got the upset alert here for the Carolina Panthers, 13.5-point underdogs against those red-hot Miami Dolphins.
I wanted to make sure I put this up on the screen, all right, because this is the word that describes the level of how much I think this is going to be so successful this week, and that is the Miami Dolphins absolutely murdering the Carolina Panthers.
Strong words there, and you froze.
And this spread, all right, they're trying to pause me right now while I'm talking, all right? And listen, this spread could have been 20 points. This spread could have been 20 points. I think I would have taken the Dolphins. That's how confident I am that they're going to absolutely steamroll them this week. I don't think Carolina stands a chance. I don't think they have. Again, their defense is not going to stop Miami. Miami is not going to let them score a lot. As a result, I could see this being very bad. In fact, I'm not going to go as far to say 70 points, but I think they could get to 40 or 50 points, the Dolphins, this week against Carolina, and I think that's going to be the reason why this spread is going to be a piece of cake to get.
Well, 70 points again in the NFL to do that a second time. I know the Dolphins are off to an historic start, but I mean, I think in this league, a professional league, to score 70 points a second time in 4 weeks, I really find that hard to fathom. But hey, who knows? Certainly Carolina is probably going to be in the basement and having the number 1 or number 2 pick in this year's NFL draft. But Chris, again, it's 13.5, and I was trying to see if Brad would maybe think about that. But Miami is heavily favored here against Carolina. And, what do you think here in this matchup? I know most people at the end of the day do think Miami is going to win. It is a matter of, do you think Carolina as an underdog is getting enough points to cover?
Yeah, I think Miami's going to cover pretty easily here. And just a little side note, Carolina traded their number 1 pick right to Chicago. So now Chicago might have the 1 and 2 pick in the draft this year if they keep not playing well. So Carolina's not going to have the number 1 pick this year coming up.
Somebody's going to have their pick. So technically they are in the basement. So I mean, there's a point to be made.
It will be the Bears getting their pick. So But yeah, I mean, listen, they're not going to get their first win. I don't think they're going to get a cover. I think Miami's going to blow them out pretty easily. Pretty just like Brad said, 40, 50 points. I could see it very possible.
Well, I know it was 2 weeks ago when I picked Arizona over San Francisco, and I thought when Arizona was driving, boy, I was a genius. And then they didn't score at the end of the game, and they look like an idiot by picking that. But there's certainly some people are going to think that. But Justin, again, Miami, I don't think anybody's not in questioning them to win this matchup, but it's a matter of 13.5. Do you think that Carolina can go and play well enough that they can make it a game?
No.
All right. Well,
they might as well just not show up to the stadium. I mean, and you think about what they're dealing with. Miles Sanders ruled out of this game. That's one of their few big weapons on offense. Obviously, you have Chuba Hubbard, who is going to be the number one running back in this game, but they're not going to be able to run the ball. Bryce Young's going to look overwhelmed against that. It's a middling Miami defense, to be honest. It's really
they're giving up 135 points. They're giving up 27 a game. That's very middling at best.
Yeah, they're definitely a middling defense, but that offense is just so explosive. Even without Devon Achane, who's placed on IR with a knee injury, it'll probably be Salvin Ahmed behind Raheem Mostert, but expect a lot of Mostert. 13, Carolina's a team that just does not stop the run at all, and Miami's a very good running team. So even if Tua doesn't have the most gaudy stats, I think Mostert could go for a $150 and 2 touchdowns. But I mean, who's stopping Hill and Waddle? I mean, Chris is right, or whoever said it was right. 50 points, it might happen, and we're looking at like a 50-7 kind of game.
Well, we'll see. Before I get to what I have to say, Joe Dell has a few comments here, and I don't know why they're relevant to this game, but I'll read them over. Back in the day during the Rich Kotite era, who, by the way, is from Staten Island. He grew up not too far from Wagner High School, and I believe it was now, well, some people will call it used to be Myers Corners. They'll call it Manor Heights now. I would be head-to-toe Jets. People would say, why are you wearing that? I would say, because I'm a Jets fan, and then they win the Super Bowl. No one can call me a poser. I'm thinking 2053. Well, I mean, Joe, that's a long time from now. I don't know if I'm going to be alive in 2053.
Right.
So, I mean, let's certainly pump the brakes back in negativity here. Let's hope that the Jets get it right a lot sooner. But as it pertains to this matchup here, in the term that my old law professor would use, I am going to go with the Miami Dolphins here. But I certainly did think about going and pulling the trigger for the Carolina Panthers. But then I thought about it and said, it is in Miami. Miami has been a juggernaut at home, and I kind of think at the end of the day, Miami will win this game probably, 34-14, something like that. And at the end of the day, if my math is correct, now, Brad, I may not be good at most things. That would certainly say the Miami Dolphins would cover. So that's why I went with the Miami Dolphins here. So that's something else here. Now, Brad, I want to go to another matchup that certainly is an interesting one where you pick. I'm really kind of curious because it's really two teams that you absolutely love. Yep. So you know where I'm going.
I know which one you're going to, too. Oh.
The Atlanta Falcons and the Washington Commanders, the brute force, Bradley Weiss. On one hand, you've got the dumbest team in the league, the Atlanta Falcons. On the other hand, you've got a team that you've ruthlessly and relentlessly bashed as long as I've known you for 3.5 years, whether it was the Redskins, the football team, the Commanders, even though your old friend, your old teammate, Kyle Supran, a guest who's been on our show before, works for the team. So you've almost here, as I guess they would famously say, you're in no man's land here, the Brute Force Browns. This is kind of a no man's land type of matchup because the dumbest team is 2.5-point favorites. Now, I have a feeling here that no matter who you pick, it's going to pain you. So I almost should say, should I go with the upset here and say go with Washington? But either way, this is a matchup that you'd almost want to avoid here. I mean, I guess in a way, I mean, as Ozzy Osbourne famously sang, there's no easy way out for you, the Brute Force, Brad Weiss, in this game. So tell us, in a way, who you're going with, because either way, you have to pick a team.
Yeah, I almost wanted to hide for this one because I really don't want to pick this game. This game disgusts me in every single way. These two teams are, like you said, arguably the two biggest teams I talk trash about that I don't like talking about. that disgust me. I mean, the Commanders, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, the Commanders this season, I've gotten them wrong every week. They have gotten me. They pissed me off. I mean, last week I went off on them. Okay, they have just about gotten me to the point where if they screw me one more time, I'm really going to lose it on this show. Okay, but with that being said, I can't even believe that I'm going to do this. But Tom Bryce, I you know what? I'm going to do it. Okay, I'm going to pick the damn Commanders. All right, and I know that. Listen, the dumbest team, all right, has been like on, off, like off, on, like, you know, again, just like they normally are. You don't know what the hell they're going to do, okay? But the Commanders ultimately absolutely got ambushed by the damn Bears last week on Thursday night.
Oh, my God. Could we never see those two teams again on prime?
What an embarrassment. What an absolute disgrace for the Commanders. So my thing is they've had a long time to think about this. It was Thursday night. They've had a long time to think about this. They have played better football earlier in the season, okay? Yeah. For some reason, with some extra practice time and some damn motivation that they better have, they better go in to the dumbest team's building who ain't playing well either, okay? And just these two teams are destined for each other, okay? Ultimately, they better go in there, they better cover the spread, and they better win. Because if they don't, I'm going to lose myself on this show talking about the Commanders next week. I really am, because I've had it with them. They really have messed my season up. If I got a couple of the Commanders games right, maybe I would be a little bit more over 500 than I am right now.
But right, be over 500. Listen, you're going to be playing Eminem losing.
The Commanders just stink. They really
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to finish it up by saying it one more time. If they don't win and cover the spread, at least cover the damn spread. Get that right. All right, if they don't do that, it's going to be some anger next week on this show that I'm going to be displaying.
Well, it'll certainly be almost like the famous Adam Sandler, Jack Nicholson movie, Anger Management. And you'll certainly be playing Eminem Lose Yourself in the background. But, you know, Chris, again, these two teams, you know, I guess Atlanta is playing slightly better. And then you've got Washington, which is 2-3, and they certainly the last 3 weeks have not left much to be desired. Brad maybe makes a point. Falcons here is skinny of a favorite at home. I think Vegas has no confidence in either of these teams because both of these teams against the spread have played pretty much next to nothing. But Atlanta is the obligatory 2.5-point favorite at home. What do you think?
Yeah, Washington, like Brad would say, like you can't figure this team out at all. No. I don't know what team's going to show up. I mean, last Thursday night, they get destroyed by the Bears, who have not looked that well, but now maybe they're turning the corner. So I don't know. And is Atlanta turning the corner? Is Desmond Ridder turning the corner? Right? He threw for over 300 yards last week. Maybe he's starting to turn the corner. You know, they're going to run the ball well. Their defense is going to keep them in the game because Washington ain't going to score that many points, right? Their offense isn't great. I'm gonna take Atlanta to cover, maybe win by a field goal at the end.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are kind of struggling with this pick. And Justin, again, Atlanta, I mean, they are 3-2. They do have a couple of okay wins. They come from behind win against maybe Green Bay's the signature win. You know, Washington got off to a nice start, won a couple games. You felt good about them, but certainly they've had quarterback issues, now defensive issues, coaching issues now. And the Atlanta Falcons are 2.5-point favorites, Justin. And who do you like?
There's one big stat here that really jumped out at me and swayed my pick in this direction. Desmond Ridder in his career is 5-0 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. He has not lost a home game yet. I think that continues this week. I think the Falcons are the better football team. Dare I say it, I think they're a good football team. You know, the addition of Bijan Robinson in the first round has been absolutely extraordinary for their offense. Him and Tyler Algier is a great two-headed monster. You know, Drake London is starting to see the ball a little bit more. The Falcons' offense is starting to click a little bit. And if you look at Desmond Ridder's career numbers, he's got a 70% completion percentage at home as opposed to 58.5 on the road. 5 touchdowns to 1 interception. He's just played much better in front of the home fans. He's been more comfortable. He's been able to move the ball offensively. I just think they're better than Washington. Last week, I really got concerned with a lot of the things that Washington was doing, especially getting smacked at home by the Chicago Bears for the Bears' first win of the year. And I just don't think the Commanders are really that good, even though I think they could bring it defensively for the most part. But I think Atlanta's the better team, and I think they're going to win this game pretty comfortably.
And speaking of people here who could afford a Mercedes-Benz, Anthony J. Finkel says, "What's up, fellas?" He's checked in, drunk, fill in the blanks. Well, in South Florida, that's what he's going to do. I mean, but he's, obviously, he reminds me of a song I'm not going to say here on the air, but staying as the straight man here on Sportswire. I am going to go with the Atlanta Falcons because the Washington Commanders the last 3 weeks. I mean, I bet, Brad, I've picked them a couple times. Buffalo's game comes to mind. Even the Philadelphia game comes to mind. And, they've burned me a few times. And I don't know. I don't think they're a good football team. I think they've got some quarterback problems there, conversely, unlike Atlanta. And I just think they have some issues right now. And sometimes, Brad, we speak about this a lot when we'll do college basketball, certainly in a couple of weeks. We know the season's starting in 3 weeks from now. Thank God. I mean, certainly I cannot wait to get to college basketball. I feel like where's my life been? But I think I do believe in momentum. And right now, the Washington Commanders have zero of it. And I think the Atlanta Falcons actually could end up in having a chance to make the postseason and win in a very winnable NFC South. I don't think people believe in Todd Bowles. I think New Orleans we're going to get to next. So I kind of think the Atlanta Falcons might be on to something, and they win here. So I think that's where I'm going to go, the Brew Force, Brad Weiss. And speaking of the New Orleans Saints here, and they're in a matchup here. Again, this is as pick'em as a matchup as you're going to get against the Houston Texans. And I was kind of optimistic on the Texans, but I think I took a little bit of a step back with them. Maybe you'll find out what I think. This is a very difficult one to pick, but the New Orleans Saints here, I guess you feel okay about. I mean, they're another team kind of like Atlanta and a few other teams. The Colts comes to mind, Jacksonville, that they're 3-2, but you're maybe not so impressed about. Baltimore is another one. And, I know you struggled with this one, and it's really 1.5 is almost like a pick 'em. So it's really not like if you pick Houston, it's almost not really an upset. Or if you go with New Orleans, it's kind of like, so tell us why you flipped a coin and picked either the Saints or the Texans.
So I picked the Saints, and I think
it's only 1.5. I really can't say it's an upset if you would have picked Houston. 1.5, it's like there's no drama there. 1.5.
That's true, but we know the practical rules here. I don't have to explain that again. Okay, but ultimately I am going to take the Saints as the favorite. All right, here in this matchup. And listen, obviously the Saints did a demolition project on the New England Patriots last week. The New England Patriots, who absolutely stink, and it's just a shame that the Jets lost to them again this year. What a shame. I mean, they really stink. And their quarterback situation is just brutal. And Bill Belichick as the GM needs to be tested right now because the team just doesn't look like a team that can compete, to be honest with you. So to me, I think the Saints are going to go in there. I know Houston was riding high. They had the tough loss to the dumbest team last week. I do think that they compete in this game, but I do say that the Saints did show me a lot defensively over the last couple of weeks. They have gotten better. I know that, again, New England wasn't a great test for them, but still shutting a team out in the NFL is still impressive. So to go in there, to play the defense they're playing, Derek Carr, is playing okay. Not great, but, listen,
kind of what he's always done. He's played okay.
Yeah, but the one thing I think I like about him in this matchup is that, I don't think he's going to make mistakes. I think he'll keep it relatively simple. I know C.J. Stroud has been playing good football, but at the same time, I just think the experience of Derek Carr and the experience of the Saints defense wins this game. And I think this is a game, as you mentioned, Tom, in a tight division, the Saints need to win.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what you said correctly and eloquently. And Chris, I guess it's a hot take. Maybe this will be a different topic, different time. But Bill Belichick in his career without Tom Brady as a quarterback is a very average coach in this league. If you go back when he's coached in this league, whether it was with Cleveland, the early incarnations of the Patriots, or post Tom Brady, Bill Belichick's record, I'm pretty sure, is under 500. So I'm just going to leave that out there. And there's certainly New Orleans Saints took advantage of that, but they are 1.5-point favorites on the road against Houston, who I think people were kind of riding high a little bit, but they took a step back last week. So what do you think here in this matchup? Are you buying the Saints, or maybe Houston bounces back here at home?
Listen, I think the Saints defense is going to be strong all year, right? That's the one thing they do have for sure. But I think playing at home, the Texans, I think they bounced back after last week. Like you said, tough loss against the Falcons. I mean, this game's going to be a tight game either way, but I just think Houston's going to pull it out somehow.
Fair enough. And Justin, again, New Orleans certainly was impressive again against a team and a coach. Again, as I stated, Bill Belichick, without Tom Brady in his career, is sub 500. I'm just putting it out there. Obviously, its sample is nowhere near as long as the sample he had with Tom Brady. But the New Orleans Saints, I guess, with a win here, 4-2, and the Texans, though, they're at home. And again, in a very winnable AFC South, and really the winner of this game could position themselves, I think, to put themselves in a nice position in their respective division. So it's kind of, as Yahoo put it, it's 54% New Orleans, 46% Houston. But what do you think here is New Orleans is a very, very skinny 1.5-point favorite on the road against Houston?
Yeah, I think the Saints defense is going to be the reason why they win this game. I think both quarterbacks will play relatively well. I mean, CJ Stroud's off to a tremendous start in his young career through the first 5 weeks of the season. But I think New Orleans is just a little bit better, and they've shown a little bit more punch offensively with Alvin Kamara back from suspension over the last couple of weeks, and to have Olave and Thomas, I think they're a little more well-rounded than Houston. So it's probably one of my least confident picks, but I will definitely I'll take the New Orleans Saints here.
Yeah, and I think most people feel the same way because it's 1.5. It's like, like Atlanta, Washington, the confidence ratio there, they're 56-44, 54-46. And before I get to my pick, we Jets fans like seeing Mr. I gave my resignation on a napkin losing, and then we'll lose, I guess. All right, well, okay, I'm going to try to, again, move on with a straight face here, but I am going with the New Orleans Saints, because I do think the Saints right now are a little bit of a better football team when I think of both sides of the ball. Quarterback, even though Houston's at home, and Houston has shown at times to be very competitive, and even going back to last year, but I kind of think New Orleans needs this game just a little more. So I like New Orleans here, 1.5. And very quickly, last game here, Brad, in the 1 o'clock hour, I'm going to spend like not even 60 seconds on it. Minnesota and Chicago. Again, Minnesota, though, 2.5-point favorites on the road against Chicago. I really don't know why, because Chicago had the better week than them. But, I mean, the brute force, Brad Weiss. Tell us what you think and why you're going with Uncle Rob here and going with the Minnesota Vikings. Very quick thought.
So I'm just going to tell you the truth, all right? I didn't know what to do with this game. So I instead of flipping a coin, I decided to take Minnesota in our pick pool, and I took Chicago in the other one. So I decided just, one way or another, I'm going to be right.
Wow,
so
you really had
one way or another, I'm going to be wrong. So I had no idea what to do with this because I have no confidence.
Politician, Brad, you could be a great politician. You could take both sides of the coin and say, hey, that's why
listen, I have no idea. I mean, Kirk Cousins with Jefferson, am I really excited about that? Them beating Chicago and them covering a damn spread. They don't do that. So, I'm not concerned. I'm not excited about that. And Chicago, what the hell are we supposed to be excited about them? Beating the Commanders 40-20? I mean, I guess. But, I mean, at the same time, it's just not going to be a plausible game, I should say. Not fun at all to watch. But I guess I'll say for this show that I'll go with Minnesota to win the game and cover.
All right, I mean, listen, Chris, there's a fair point here. Very quick thought. I would say no more than a minute. I mean, listen, the Bears did get an impressive win. Minnesota, I think, has certainly been maybe the biggest disappointment in the league so far, although last year they were absolutely horrific against the spread. But they are kind of peculiarly here. 2.5-point favorites on the road against Chicago. And who do you like?
Listen, Minnesota, no Justin Jefferson, hardly any running game to even think about. I don't think Minnesota's going to win many games. I think we're going to see Mr. Kirk Cousins get moved at some point in the next couple of weeks before the trade deadline, because he's going to be a free agent anyway after this year. So, and then on the other side, the Bears coming off that big win on Thursday night against Washington, Justin Fields back-to-back really good games.
Yep.
So maybe he's finally turning the corner. I'm going to take my chances with Chicago in this game to cover easily.
I'm going to get to my thought, but that was kind of exactly what I maybe have thought. But Justin, again, Minnesota 1-4, definitely major disappointment. Bears offensively have played very well the last 2 weeks. If you go that route and they're at home, but Minnesota is 2.5-point favorites on the road. And what do you think?
Yeah, the Vikings are going to really feel the effects of not having Justin Jefferson. I know Jordan Addison will probably step in and do a pretty solid job. And you still got KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson. But like you guys said, the run game is just non-existent for the Vikings. The Bears offensively are just playing a much better brand of football over the last couple of weeks. And I think that they're going to win this one. So I'm going to take the Bears.
Yeah, I went with Chicago basically because Chris pretty much said what I was going to exactly say. The last 2 weeks offensively, the Bears have played pretty well. They've moved the ball. They've shown kind of what we saw at flashes last year, and they're at home. And I think Minnesota is in a world of trouble right now this year. And I definitely think Kirk Cousins is going to be an interesting prize for some team, knock, maybe even locally, that if they want to maybe salvage the season, that might be somebody to look at. But we'll certainly get to that maybe toward the end of the picks. But I am going with the Chicago Bears because I do believe that the Bears at home, I think that they've played a little bit better the last 2 weeks here. So let's go very quickly again on another matchup, the Brew Force Brad Weiss. I know another matchup that certainly pained you to pick in the Las Vegas Raiders and the New England Patriots. Certainly the Patriots, looked horrendous last week, and the Raiders won an ugly game on Monday night. But the Brew Force Brad Weiss, tell us why you believe in Bill Belichick and why, you're giving an old Yeller one more chance here and why you pull off the upset for in a 60-second thought with the Patriots over the Raiders, 405.
Wasn't it just 5 minutes ago I just told you how I felt about them? So
trying to sneak one in.
No, I'm not.
You're like the old QB sneak. It's like on 4th and inches. You expect
you can't sneak the stench that's coming out of New England right now. All right, there's no sneaking that. They stink. And ultimately, listen, I will say this: the only thing that made me think was that Bill Belichick is going against one of his former assistants in McDaniels. He's going against the former backup in Jimmy G. So, that kind of worried me. But at the same time, the Patriots as a team don't worry me at all. They have so many problems. I know the Raiders are problematic too, but they can't be as bad as what I've been seeing from the Patriots. So I got the Raiders covering the spread, and the Patriots stink. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and Joe Dell has a couple thoughts on that. I'll get to that, and Joe's actually on point this time. But, Chris, again, Raiders are 3-point favorites at home. New England is just an awful football team right now with a lot of question marks there. But do they get back on track because of some of the reasons Brad said, even though he picked the Raiders? Or do the Raiders maybe continue to, salvage their season, get back-to-back wins, and maybe feel good about their season for a little bit?
We are witnessing the end of the Bill Belichick era in New England. So
I agree. I'm glad somebody
said it's a crash landing as well, a crash ending, whatever you want to call it. But it's not getting pretty this year for them. So we could just sit back and enjoy this as Jet fans. It's going to end ugly, and it's probably
under 500. Listen, without Brady, he's an under 500 coach. I know it's a long body of work with Brady, but outside of Brady, what was he as a coach?
And you know what? And it's probably the end of Bill Belichick's career too, because who's going to take him on, right? I was thinking, like all week, I was thinking real quick, what team could possibly, and one team came to mind, really two, but one was the Chargers, right? Because the Chargers are always a complete mess anyway, and they do have a franchise quarterback. The only other team other than them, possibly after this year, would be the Giants, maybe, just because he has ties to
history.
But I don't think they will. I don't see it. So
I think they give Dable another shot. I think they give him a pass on this year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I personally,
unless you really think about it, you really want to go down the road. The Cowboys.
Oh, I don't think he'll want to deal with Jerry Jones.
Oh,
I don't think that's a good mixture. You
No,
know what I mean?
but I mean that's the one that could really be an interesting one if they have another early season exit in the playoffs, or even if they miss it by some chance.
Maybe you're right. It's possible, but I just don't see those two mixing because Belichick is in charge. So
Yep.
Yeah,
there he goes, right? And Jerry Jones is not going to like that. So
well, because he's the GM, sure.
that part I don't see it. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to go with the Raiders just because the Patriots are just awful, and I don't see them even against the Raiders. I don't see them winning.
Well, I guess Justin and the Raiders actually get back-to-back wins, and for a rare maybe point in their season, feel good, or does Bill Belichick have one more left in him?
Listen, I gotta be honest with you. Both of these teams are so bad. I got no analysis for this game. But I think
That's why I was like with some of these games, and I said 12 o'clock, but we'll go past it because now I'm having a good time. But it was like some of these games this week was like,
yeah, it's this one. This one's a and this is the Nance and Romo CBS game at 4:25.
Wow.
Well, we got some clunkers on primetime this week, because I said the Giants and Bills the Giants in primetime this year.
This is the Nance Romo game. I'm going to take the Raiders.
Romo
the Patriots are worse. The Raiders are home.
Romo and Nance better be entertaining this week. That's all I'll have to say. But the brute force Bradley Weiss and going quick against shotgun 425 Rams and Cardinals. Rams 7-point favorites here against the Cardinals. Rams, I guess, playing maybe for an outside chance at a playoff spot. Maybe you believe in them. Rams have had an up and down season. They get a win here back to 500. But maybe you believe in the Cardinals because you like the way the Cardinals have played at times. Maybe you've seen something that says, 7 points. I'm 8 games back. I need to start making games up in the standings. And that's kind of why I go with the Cardinals here. It was a 7-point to kind of make some ground up.
Well, I also don't want to lose ground, Tom, and this should be losing ground by taking the Cardinals. Excuse me. All right, I'm taking the Rams. I think the Rams have played respectable football all season.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I know they had their up and downs, but listen, I'm going to say this, and this excites me not only for the Rams' sake, but for my fantasy team. Cooper Kupp looks ready to come back and ball again.
That might be the one thing I think that, as we see now, people come on to the show, ironically, that maybe that you feel good about the Rams in a way off.
Yeah, no, Cooper Kupp, I think, gives them a spark. And I think that was clear and evident last week. And I think that this week against the Cardinals team coming into their building, I think Cooper Kupp goes off. I think they do great. I think Stafford has had a decent season. The only issue with him is that their line has been suspect. But I think the Cardinals, against the Cardinals, they'll look okay. They'll win the game by 7 points.
All right, Chris. I mean, the Rams, again, Cooper Kupp comes back. Maybe you start to feel good about them. They've played okay. Certainly last year, an aberration hit with injuries. And then you got the Cardinals who, are probably going to be, where they are. I mean, they're probably going to be a 3 or maybe 4-win football team if lucky. But it's a 4:25 game. And do you like the Rams here at home, or maybe you see something in Arizona?
Yeah, I think the Rams are definitely a good team. They just had like a ridiculous tough schedule here. Like the first four out of the 5 games, you had Seattle, San Fran, Cincinnati, and Philly. That's 4 of their first 5 games, and the other game was at the Colts. And that was the game they won. And I think they're still a pretty good team. A couple of years ago, they won the Super Bowl. Their offensive line is suspect for sure, but I think with Kupp back, I think that adds a little bit to their offense, and I think they'll cover. So I'll take the Rams.
Justin, I don't have to ask you who you're going with because I see the jersey on there. So tell me why you're going with the Rams.
Actually, I'm taking the Cardinals to cover on this one, but
you got the Rams jersey on. I was kind of thinking.
Listen, I still think the Rams do win this game. This game kind of sneakily feels to me as a backdoor cover kind of game. That's kind of why
I picked the Cardinals for that same reason against the 49ers.
That's
2 weeks ago.
Why
you should know.
That's why on the 7-point number, I'm taking the Cardinals. But the Rams are definitely the Rams are definitely going to win this game. I like the way Arizona's playing for Jonathan Gannon. I think they've played relatively well. They played relatively competitive over the first 5 weeks of the season, and I think that's going to continue this week. But I do think the Rams are going to come away maybe with a 24 or 23-17 kind of win. I don't think their offense is quite going to kick into gear just yet, but I think they'll play a relatively solid game.
All right, now let me get to some comments here and somebody that has finally joined us. First, let me get to Jodell. He likes the Bears. He likes the Raiders. He says Rams a lock from your lips to God's ears, Joe. But speaking of somebody that is here, he is the man behind the Sports Authorities group. And by the way, I want to send him my condolences. I want to send my condolences, though, in all seriousness. I believe there was a member of the group that had passed away earlier today, so I want to extend my condolences to John and everybody else impacted by that. But certainly Mr. Gonzalez is back. He says, I am here better late than never. Greetings, Brute. He also wants to tell you that the Brute and Lizzo rumors are true. Brad, I didn't realize you really I guess you like the cushion for the pushing. Maybe that's what it is, I guess. If you would have said Taylor, I would have said, all right, I could see that in some ways, but different things you like, or maybe, Haley Steinfeld or somebody else like that, or, I don't know, Jennifer Lopez or somebody, but Lizzo, if it works, God bless you. But obviously that's who you may like, I guess. And certainly, that's what he's saying. He's saying you and Lizzo are true. That's the next thing here in sports. But, I'm going to certainly leave that there, but I'm going with the Los Angeles Rams because it's very hard for me to see, even though I guess because 2 weeks ago I picked the Cardinals against the 49ers and the Cardinals at the last play of the game really bit me there. I think in this case I'm going with the Rams, but actually I think the Rams are a better football team. I think the Rams this year feel like they're probably going to be around a 500 football team. I don't know if they're good enough to be a playoff team, but with Cooper Kupp, Stafford back, you've got McVay still. I think you're competitive. I don't know if you're a playoff team, but that's why I'm going with the Rams. Now, the Brute Force, Brad Wise, I know this matchup coming up next before we get to the two local teams and then the Monday night games. We only got 4 games left. In this one, I know you're going with the Detroit Lions because I know that you're going here because you've seen with the Lions very well. If it wasn't for the 49ers and Eagles, we could be talking about the Lions right there at the top of the food group. But nevertheless, they are still comfortably in the top of the throne here in the NFC North. So tell us why here in this case you were going with the hometown Detroit Lions against Tampa Bay, even though Detroit is actually on the road and are 3-point favorites.
Yeah, I'm going to first say this, ladies and gentlemen. This spread is extremely, extremely disrespectful to the Detroit Lions. Very disrespectful. Okay, because they are not just the better team, they are the much better team. Okay, and I think that this game, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to hear my lock of the week, this is one of them.
Oh God!
Okay? This is one of them.
Oh God! Jinx it really now.
No. There is confidence beaming out of me about this one. Okay?
That's like when you said when the Mets were a lock last year. Forget it now, Brad.
See, now you need a new life for lock of the week.
Get it, Brad. Forget it.
Maybe I will do that, Chris. You're right. Maybe I will. But listen, I'm taking the Detroit Lions, and I'm not taking them by 3 points. I'm taking them by 14. They're gonna beat the Buccaneers real good.
I don't even think it's gonna be 14.
Listen, I'm telling you right now. Now. These Lions are not playing games. These Lions, are going to go in there against Todd Bowles and his quiet self with his no energy and silence and all this.
Well, we saw that here, but it's working over there right now. But you're going to really jinx the Lions.
It's working, but listen, this is not any other team. This is the Detroit Lions. This is one of the top teams in the NFC coming in. And I know people say, well, they did compete with the Eagles and they did, do this and that. Well, guess what? The Eagles, like we're going to talk about in a second, they won games that they haven't played their best football. Okay.
Now, as we're getting viewers tune in, we're getting a couple of them tune in. I mean, I just pray, Brad, that you don't jinx the Lions here.
Listen, Detroit is playing great football right now. Okay, I know you guys want to talk about who they played last week, but at the same time, Aiden Hutchinson is a stud. Okay, their offense is full of studs. Okay, they got everything working. Their coaching staff has been amazing. Okay, they are going to go in there and they are going to show the Buccaneers who's boss on their home field. I'm telling you right now.
Listen, from your lips to God's ears, but I really feel like, Brad, you just put a spell on the Lions for this week. But we'll have to see. I pray you didn't, Brad. But Chris, the Detroit Lions have certainly been a very good story in the NFL. They have built on the momentum they had in the second half last year. But you know what? Conversely, Todd Bowles has done a very nice under-the-radar job with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they're in first place. And this is going to be a good game. It's going to be a good test with the Bucs defense and the Lions offense. And, again here, Detroit is 3-point favorites, 425. I think a lot of people are going to be checking this one out. So what do you think here? I'm sure you and Sharman had a field day with this matchup, and I'll get a chance to listen to it later this weekend.
You know what? You got to give, like you said, you got to give Bowles credit, right? I mean, Tampa, I don't think anybody had them finishing first in this division.
Yep.
And right now they're 3-1. I mean, I don't mind the spread. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like Brad is saying by any stretch, but I think Detroit's going to cover. The one good thing we're going to see is Tampa's wearing their classic creamsicle jersey,
Yes,
right?
they
The
are.
orange. So that's going to be awesome. At least it's going to look cool.
Are those
but,
about the old jerseys, like when they had like that old Cavalier
Yep.
logo? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
we're gonna see it. So,
Okay.
yeah, looking forward to it. That's some pretty awesome stuff. But yeah, I think Detroit wins. I don't think they're gonna win by 2 touchdowns. Maybe by a touchdown, maybe by 10. But yeah, but I think Detroit covers.
Well, this'll. I'm sure John Gonzalez will remember this. This will be like an old NFC Central matchup.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But if they lose, it's all of Brad's fault.
Oh,
Obviously.
I'm going to kill Brad. That part of me feels like Brad has jinxed the Lions like he did the Mets last year, but I'm not going to even get into the Mets.
Just remember, lock of the week.
Well, that's why I'm a little bit,
He's got to get a new graphic, I think.
Well, we'll see. But Justin, again, I think even Brad disrespected the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been a good story this year, and they're at home, and they might have something to play for. God help us if Buccaneers players hear what Brad Weiss has to say. And certainly, if you need more locker room material here. But, what do you think here? Is the Lions are in 3-point favorites? And I think, maybe one of the sneaky good games of the week.
That's why Fox moved it to 425 and made their national game with Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen. Listen, this spread's actually perfect. On the contrary to what Brad said, I think this is going to be a very tight ball game. The Tampa Bay Bucs are playing some very, very good football.
Yep.
Early in the season, and Baker Mayfield, got to give him credit. He's playing balls to the wall football, and he's played extremely well. And that Tampa Bay defense, they fly to the football. Now, for Detroit, you get Amon-Ra St. Brown back from injury this week, but you lose Jahmyr Gibbs. So the running game's a little bit of shambles right now for the Lions, but I don't think that's going to affect them that much. I think Jared Goff plays very well in this game. I'm going to take the Lions to cover, but I also, unlike even Chris, you said by a touchdown, I would see like 24-20. I think it's going to be a very, very close game. I think Tampa's going to play a very good football game, but Detroit in the end is the better football team.
All right, let me get to John's comments because John is here with us, and I want people to obviously go out there and follow the sports stories when you watch this later on throughout our page. We do get a lot of people that watch a lot of the Sportswire streams now throughout the week, and he says Brute drank the Lions Kool-Aid, but he says Lions win a close game. And Brad, obviously, I'm always going to pick the Detroit Lions, but I even think that you've disrespected the Buccaneers to that degree. But I do think Detroit wins. I don't know if it'll be more than a touchdown. I kind of think 24-17. I think Justin said 24-20. I could buy that, but I'm going to say like 24-17. I don't know if the Bucs can score enough points to win against Detroit, and I think that Detroit can do enough against their defense. So it'll be a really intriguing matchup. Detroit's offense, Tampa's defense, Bowles versus Campbell. I think there's a lot of really intriguing storylines. There are two franchises that are kind of, maybe the Buccaneers mild surprise, Detroit on the rise, old NFC Central matchup. So good stuff there. So before I go to the locals, we got one more game here. And that is the Monday night game. Are you ready? I hope it's going to be a good one here because we've had some clunkers of late in prime time. But the Brute Force Brad Weiss, I mean, this is certainly going to be one of your favorite games to pick. I'm going to pick your poison one. The Dallas Cowboys here squaring off against the Los Angeles Chargers, our old friend Anastasia Riznia, diehard Chargers fan. And the Chargers, I guess, have started to play a little bit better here. I mean, I don't know if I'm really sold on this football team, though. They're 2-2, and they, kind of struggled here to get some wins. I mean, I think they beat the Raiders last I saw, and they won on the road against Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, they got a couple wins here, but, they kind of are where the Chargers usually have been here these last couple years. They'll probably be somewhere between 8-9 and 10-7, and they'll probably, need this game and a bunch of other games to probably decide if they're going to be a playoff team. That's what kind of feels like the Chargers are going to be. And the Dallas Cowboys maybe took a major step back last week against the San Francisco 49ers. So the Brute Force Brad Weiss, I am so curious on where you go here, because the Dallas Cowboys are actually 2-point favorites, though, against the Chargers on the road. So I have a feeling, though, Brad, that the upset alert is going to go on the board, because you really, with a venomous passion, hate the Dallas Cowboys. So tell us why you actually went back to the upset and picked Justin Herbert and the Chargers to get their third consecutive win.
Tom, after the rough start, Tom, over 3, over 4, you've gotten yourself a nice game, because you started to redeem yourself.
It was like you in softball a few years ago. Remember, you got up to that such poor start, then you went to practice.
Oh, I remember that. I remember I had a really brutal season to the start of the season, but then I started to hit some home runs. But anyway, I'm taking the Chargers. I feel good about it too. And the reason why is this. First of all, when it comes to Kellen Moore, I think he's going to be very motivated in this game. Having going against the Cowboys, who obviously let him go. I think that there's one team that looks like they have an evolutionary offense, and the other one that looks super archaic and really bad right now on offense. Okay, and Dak Prescott, again, we could talk. Everybody talks about him.
Oh my God, he was I defended Dak.
I'm going to say this: some of you guys kind of, and now again, I'm not going to single out certain people. Some of you guys, right, kind of questioned me when I said that Dak Prescott was at best an average quarterback. I don't think I'm wrong.
I was one of them. I'd be straight up. I thought he was better than average.
I think that was being exactly right. He's an average quarterback. He's nothing better. Okay, he's not elite. That's for sure. He ain't elite. He is not ready to step up to any test. When he gets tested by teams that are better than him or at his level, he falls down. In fact, if you guys actually saw some of the statistics, when the Cowboys are leading games, Dak Prescott tends to do okay. Whenever they're down in the game, he chokes. He does absolutely nothing. He plays down to his the competition at times. When they're losing in games, he can't handle the pressure. So I just think in this game, Kellen Moore is going to come out with a great game plan. The Chargers are going to come out and they're going to score points, because Dallas's defense, by the way, does not look as formidable as it should, especially now without Diggs. That is a major, major loss, as they have other issues there as well. So I just think that the Chargers are going to come out. They're going to put pressure on the Cowboys. And as Dak Prescott does, he will collapse. He will not handle the pressure well. And I do think that the Cowboys will lose this game because of the archaic offense that they have right now against the Chargers, who, again, are not a great defensive team. I'm not saying the Cowboys won't score. I think they will. I just think the Chargers will outscore them.
All right, that's interesting stuff there, and John's got a bunch of comments. I'll say that for last, but John, this is an interesting matchup, and I'll get to you certainly in a second. But Chris, Dallas, I think I felt good about them, but then I saw them on national TV against a team that I thought they would have had something to play for the last couple of years, being knocked out in the playoffs by them, and boy, did they lay a goose egg. And the Chargers, I guess, as I said in my introduction of them, I think they're probably going to be, for whatever reason, needing the last play, the last drive, the last game of the season to make the playoffs. And as every game for them going forward, this could probably be the game that could decide whether they're a playoff team. And, both these teams in a way maybe are in the same position, but alas, it's the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night that are 2-point favorites. And what do you think here on these two, I guess, middling teams?
You know what? The Chargers, I think, are still trying to figure out who they are, right? And it's a team that's, I always say it, they got a lot of talent, but they just can't figure it out. Every year, it's the same story with them. And Dallas, I mean, if last week wasn't a wake-up call for them, nothing is, right? Because that was kind of a wake-up call. Like we're not as good as the best team in the league. We might be the second tier or third tier, but we're definitely not as good as those guys. They might talk like they're as good as San Fran, but they're not as good as San Fran.
No way.
No. And I think Prescott, I put him in like a notch above Kirk Cousins.
I knew you were going there.
Yeah, because I don't know. I don't feel he's definitely not elite, like you said, but he's not average. He's a little bit above average. How much above? You know, he gives you a different game each week, so he's a little bit above average. But I think somehow Dallas pulls this one out. I don't know how. I just think the Chargers are going to find a way to lose the game,
which is what they do.
They're going to find a way to win the game. So I'm going to take Dallas.
Yeah, you know, Justin, again, the Chargers are kind of, I guess, maybe in a way, even though we always think they're going to take the next step and, you know, right, they got to win against the Raiders. They beat the Vikings, you know, okay, give them credit. They bounced back from 2-2, but you don't feel impressed about them. And in Dallas, you know, which got it to a pretty good start this year, but then you look at them, they have a blemish against a bad Arizona team. And then in national TV against San Francisco, where you think with all that history, even the recent history with those two teams, and they get punched in the mouth early and never got up from it. I mean, you really left away with a bit of taste in your mouth with them. Somebody has to win here, and who do you think it is?
Let's start by mentioning the fact that this is a battle of fraud versus fraud. I mean, both teams are fraudulent.
I think that's a fair statement.
They're just so overrated and not that good. This one's tough. You know, I think Dallas is bound to bounce back after the drubbing last week, but the Chargers at home, if you will, even though it'll be more Cowboy fans for sure at SoFi Stadium. I'm gonna go with probably the boldest prediction of the week. I'm gonna take the Chargers plus the 2, but the Cowboys win the game. And why I'm saying that? The Cowboys are gonna win 35-34 because dumb you know what Staley goes for 2 for the win and they lose.
Well, that you know would very much be poetic because he is the weirdest coach. He is the most oddball coach that there is out there. I mean, so, you know, part of me says, you know what, you wouldn't be crazy to think that. So, I mean, I could certainly see that. And before I get to my pick, and then we'll do a very quick thought on the Giants and Bills, because I really don't want to spend almost any time on that matchup. John does say that you put a hex on him. So maybe that's the case. You know, he's 34-44, and, you know, he's certainly not having the season that he hoped, but maybe this will be the week he turns it around. The hex is real. I'm having a bad year with my picks. I think he has a doll of myself sticking pins in it. Yeah, maybe it's almost like, was it Pedro Serrano in Major League that had the doll with the voodoo? Maybe it's what Brad is right now. Almost Pedro Serrano in Major League. I thought that was a funny one. And Eagles in San Francisco are way ahead of everyone else. Whomever has home field advantage in the playoffs will represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the Eagles and the 49ers and everybody else, including Detroit in the NFC. There's no question about that. The AFC, I think it's still, you know, a little bit. Do you buy into Miami? You know, certainly Kansas City. Okay, they're back. I think they're obviously no one's going to pick against them, but they're really then after that in the AFC, it's very, very murky. But in the NFC, it's a 2-horse race, and the Chargers are an enigma to me. I'm done picking them anymore. Yeah, you know. But you have to pick somebody in this matchup, and I picked the Chargers. And the reason I did is because the Chargers, right, are coming off the bye. So they're coming off the bye week. They've got a couple wins, and this Dallas team is facing a lot of questions, and they're back on primetime TV, national TV. And I don't know, something tells me here that I don't know why, but I think the Chargers will win an annoyingly close game, and it'll be like 31-28 or something like that. It'll just be one of those games. It'll be a close game. And, you know, Dak Prescott's going to be the question point here. And also, he has a great point here. Brandon Staley is the Mario Cristobal of which is obviously Miami.
That decision was
last week. Yeah, so Mario Cristobal. It's a very, very, that's an excellent comparison. I mean, I think That's a really fair comparison, but I don't know why, but I'm going with the Los Angeles Chargers, maybe because it's 2. It's that 2-point skinny spread. I think that's why I kind of go with it. And if you look at the algorithms, if you buy into it, it's the closest game of the week. Nobody knows where to go. 51-49. It's 51 Dallas, 49 Chargers. So that tells you that this is really a tough one to pick. But Brad, I want to go very quickly on a game. I know that is not going to be a tough one to pick before I go with the Jets and the Eagles, and that is the Buffalo Bills and the New York Football Giants. It moved actually half a point from 14.5 to 14 points on the Sunday night game here this week. Now, I know, Brad, obviously this is here where
No. I'm going to cut you off because I'm not going to let you do that. All right. There's no persuading me here either. Okay. Buffalo minus 14. Come on. Easy. They're going to get it easily. They'll get it without even playing half the game. They'll get it in half a game.
All right. So you pretty much said it. I mean, Chris, there isn't much at all positive to talk about with the Giants. Buffalo, I'm sure, is going to look to make a statement here on Sunday night after losing in London against Jacksonville. So tell us what you think here real quick.
I think Buffalo wins this easily, but I'm crossing my fingers here, but I did take the Giants getting the points. I just think they're going to hang in for a little while. It's not going to get crazy. I think it's going to be like the Miami game.
Carolina, yeah.
Right? The Miami game against the
Carolina.
Giants.
Oh, Giants, Miami.
Yeah, they hung in, and, Miami did eventually cover, but I think maybe the Giants actually just sneak a little backdoor cover here. Taylor is going to give them a little bit more on offense that Daniel Jones hasn't. I'm going to say I'm going to pick the Giants to cover, barely.
Yeah, I have to admit the 13.5 and the 14-point games this week, I thought about it that way, but I'll get to my thought. And Justin, again, there is not much at all positive to talk about with this Giants team. And Buffalo definitely, I'm sure, is going to look at them, and it's almost like the person that's going to sit at the old Aesop's fable, where the person's sitting there thinking they're going to have a meal, but they're the meal that's going to be cooked, and I feel like that's the Giants here, so tell me what you think.
Absolute destruction spot right here. I mean, the Bills are going to absolutely roll. I mean, I'm even going to give you a score here. I think the Bills win. I think the Bills win 48-3.
Wow, you're going really.
So first of all, Daniel Jones is not playing.
I knew that.
Tyrod Taylor.
No Barkley, right? No Barkley either.
He's still questionable. I don't think he'll play. Andrew Thomas is out again. Evan Neal, I think, is likely out.
And the center is out too.
John Michael Schmidt is out. He's 3/5 of their line. Backup lineman Matt Pert is out. They got problems all over the line. Ezekiel Ojulari again out for the Giants. Their defense takes a hit. And unlike last week, where I think Tua got a little careless with the ball, I don't think Josh Allen's going to be too reckless this week. I think Allen's going to be precise. He's, especially in Orchard Park this season, he's been absolutely precise with the ball. And because of the complaining on the sidelines we saw from Steph Diggs because of not getting the ball, calling it right now, 12 catches, 225 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Steph Diggs in this game. Absolute steamroll spot by the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, John certainly got a lot of comments here, and I'm going to get to him here. So certainly shout out to John. I'm actually doing better this year picking college games. Yeah, that's interesting.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's interesting because I watch college football. Maybe we'll do something next year with college football, but we'll see. I don't know if everybody here watches college football, but different topic for a different time. Buffalo is my lock of the week. Danny, bucket of change. Does he even have any buckets of change right now that he could spare?
So.
Giants are the worst team in the NFL.
Yeah, I think they are.
Carolina?
Carolina's better than the Giants.
Okay, well, I guess we'll have to see, but the Giants are a bad football team. Evan Neal is the new Eric Flowers, total treasure. And Evan Neal, he certainly deserved, all the, criticism he got in flack by certainly talk radio here in the area, specifically Don LaGreca, so no question about that. But, John, does make a fair statement. So maybe the Giants are the worst team, but certainly quite a fall from a team that, we all felt good about last year, but that's how the ball bounces. So the Brute Force Brad Wise, I am so fascinated on where you go this week because we've got a 4:25 p.m. game, the game that we saved last, and there's the Philadelphia Eagles and our New York Jets, and the Jet fans are certainly thumping their chest because of last week's big win against Denver, and everybody's feeling good, and maybe Zach has turned it around finally, and I told you so, as everybody's saying, and we're going into the bye week, and you're looking at it like it's only 7 and it's 4:25. It's going to be a beautiful afternoon in New York, and this Eagles team has not been as strong as it's been so far. This is exactly why you feel good, and you pick the Jets here as 7-point underdogs, 4:25. They were in this spot before last year and had a couple wins, and you feel like they're going to do it again. And the Zach attack certainly delivers, and some. Tell us why you went with the upset special with your beloved New York Jets.
The Zach attack? Oh, boy.
I was thinking the same by the Bell, the old Zach attack.
Oh, boy.
Fans.
Listen, let me first say this. I actually put a poll up on Instagram.
Yes, and I shared it at the end of the before we went on the air. Correct.
With this spread, and will the Eagles cover it or will the Jets cover it? And it was actually a 50-50 split on the votes.
I'm going to get to what I think. That's a good point.
So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do it. I'm gonna take.
I knew it. You
right.
Listen.
Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take the Jets with the spread. I am not. Make this clear. I'm still not confident they're gonna win the game. Unfortunately, listen, Philadelphia has never lost to the Jets in their entire history. I think that does continue, but I do not think this is going to be a steamrolling effect because I said it earlier when I made my statement about the Lions. Beating down the Buccaneers, in my opinion. I just think the Eagles have not played their best football yet. And I think that they are going to play okay. The Jets defense is going to give them a run for their money. They're not going to make it easy. I think that they're going to have to earn it. With that being said, the Jets offense, I think we'll see a little bit of success. I know that the Eagles defense is formidable. I'm not going to say anything, but at the same time, they have that big injury to Carter, which is a big one. That's going to be a big loss for them. So I do think there's a little bit of wiggle room for Zach Wilson maybe to get out and run a little bit, and obviously Breece Hall to run a little bit, and to make some of those short throws and some of those throws he's been making, not making mistakes. So I do think that they'll do enough, Tom, to cover the spread. I think they will. With that being said, I just don't think they're going to do enough to win the game. I think the Eagles make that play. And that's the one thing that we worry about with the Jets offense is that in the last few weeks that Wilson's played better, when it's came down to the late game situation, they haven't exactly came through. I just think it's going to be tough for the Jets defense to turn the ball over from the Eagles late in the game like they did to the Broncos. I think that they're going to have a tough time with that. And that's why the Eagles are going to eventually win, but it will be closer than we think.
Interesting, because I have some thoughts that might be similar to that, but I'll save that for last. And I have a bunch of comments here, which I'll get to shortly. But Chris, you're in a really tough spot because you got the Jet jersey on, but you're also an Eagles fan. So, do you avoid picking this game? Do you say, you know what? I'm an Eagles fan. I'm a Jets fan. I don't pick the game. I got to be impartial. So I'm really fascinated, actually. Where do you go here in this matchup? Maybe are you going to be at the game this week?
No, I definitely couldn't go to this game.
Good point.
Yeah. No, you know what? I put my pick in early this week. I picked the Jets because on the podcast, we kind of went with the Eagles winning by, about 10 points, 13 points. But I'm going to go by my pick. And my pick was, I looked at it this way. I thought the Jets could slow down their passing offense. The Eagles passing offense, because they do have two really good receivers, obviously, right? A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. But then after that, it gets really thin. Even at tight end, Dallas Goedert, he's good, but I think we match up well with them against the pass. It's against the run is where I think the Jets are going to have a problem. I think the Eagles offensive line is one of the best we've seen, for the past 30 years. That's how good that offensive line is. But now when you look at the Eagles' problems on defense, like you said, Jalen Carter is going to be out, and also Darius Slay is going to be out too. So that's going to hurt their pass defense big time. So if the Jets can give Zach Wilson a little bit of time, like they did in the second half of the Denver game, I think they got a chance to keep this game close. Everybody thought the Jets were going to get blown out by Kansas City, and they kept it close, right? So I think this is the same thing. Jets are going to stay close. I think they'll stay within a touchdown, but I think Philly wins.
Interesting. And, Justin, this is, I think, where some people are going to feel the same way. But, what do you think? Did the Jets' momentum carries them here a little bit, or is Philadelphia too much for them as they've got obviously super plans once again?
Yeah, I think the Jets are going to carry this over into this weekend. I think they're going to play relatively well. One big stat to note is teams have gotten into the red zone 16 times against the New York Jets and have only scored 5 touchdowns. I mean, one of the things about this Jets defense with Robert Saleh, Jeff Ulbrich, is they bend but they don't break. And I think that's going to continue early. And I think we're going to see Jake Elliott be very busy in this game. And I honestly think that it could even come down to a late field goal. I like the Jets to cover in this game. I do think that they're going to be able to slow down the passing offense of the Eagles, despite not having DJ Reed. I do think Bryce Hall held his own, although it's going to be a tougher matchup. He's either going to have A.J. Brown or he's going to have Devontae Smith on him, because we saw last week, even though Salah tried to play some games and moved Sauce around on the first 2 plays, Sauce Gardner's not a travel corner, and that could hurt them in this game. But overall, I don't think the Eagles are going to be that great on offense. And honestly, to me, it's got the feel of like a 20-16 game. I do think the Eagles get the victory, but the Jets are going to be in this game in the fourth quarter. And I will say this: I do think Zach Wilson's going to have the ball late with an opportunity to win. I don't think he'll do it, but I would love to see him pull that off.
Well, we'll certainly see. I've got a bunch of comments, so let me get to them here before I get to my pick and we get to closing thoughts for the evening. John certainly thinks it'll be the massacre at the Meadowlands. Joe Dell, though, says special teams won the game for the Jets last week, so what do you think then this week? The brute force is giving me a migraine. Birds always beat it, but I think was just mentioned. He, though, thinks it's going to be a massacre, as he pointed out, 38-10.
No way.
Whatever happened to Dalvin Cook? And I want to say hello. I think this is a part of the TF crew, if I'm not mistaken. The Elite, I believe, is part of the TF crew. Somebody we're going to speak with next week on the show, I believe. And he says, so 49ers, bang, bang, Niner gang. Obviously, the San Francisco 49ers there. So, yes, the Eagles and 49ers are on a clash collision course the next few weeks. We'll talk about it. But, now, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong. If the Eagles win by a touchdown, they're 7-point favorites. Does that mean the Jets, if I pick the Jets, I win, right? If it's a push?
No, it's a push.
It's a push.
So a push means...
Yes, it is a push. You not win, though.
But
you don't win and you don't lose.
You win, you don't lose. Exactly. It's like neutral.
So the game gets thrown out to your total?
Yes, if it's 7
That's
points.
exactly why I picked the Jets, actually, because I think the game's going to be decided by a touchdown. I think the Eagles win by a touchdown. And my thinking was, you know what? You mentioned the Chiefs-Jets, and I thought, the Chiefs would blow them out. And the Chiefs played poorly after the big lead, and the Jets kind of hung in there. And I kind of looked at it and said they held Mahomes in check there. In fact, he really wasn't that great at all, really, after the first quarter. And, Russell Wilson, you can say what you want about him. I mean, he was playing pretty well up until he played the Jets, and the Jets did a good job with them. And I know, obviously, the Eagles are everything in the book, and they are certainly warranted to be, where they are. But I do think that the Jets are going to play inspired football and lose by a touchdown, which is exactly why I had picked them. And I thought that I would actually get a win off that. That's why I was actually really curious on to push him. But that's okay. But because a loss, if it's a touchdown, actually helps me anyway. So Jalen Hurts, I think, will play not as great. And also, John wants to say, before I come back to that, take the Irish on Saturday. Well, Notre Dame, and remind me who Notre Dame is playing on Saturday, because Notre Dame...
USC.
Yeah, I guess so, right? Because Notre Dame got their butts spanked against
What's the spread?
Louisville. I could check that right now. I mean, but
Probably
yeah, I
high,
mean,
no?
probably 2 touchdowns, I would think. Right, I'll check it right now for those that are listening and watching. Notre Dame. That's the primetime NBC game because they moved the Big Ten game, if I'm not mistaken. Notre Dame USC spread. I actually have it right in front of me, and it is 2.5 actually. Fighting Irish 2.5. Over under 60.
Yep, Notre Dame 2.5-point favorites at home.
I think that's a good spread. You know what, John? Good call. I would pick Notre Dame also 2.5. I think 60.5 is the over under, and I think I would probably go with Sam Howell, maybe the over in that matchup, 60.5. Right, it's 7:30 lights over there.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say that. That reminds us of our friends here that have a show for us on the Protect Life podcast. They don't talk about life. They actually talk about sports. They call themselves the Protect Life podcast. Jeremy Crafton and Justin Post. Maybe because Justin's a wrestler and he wants to protect his life from all the back injuries he's had in the ring. But they talk Notre Dame. But yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, I think the Jets lose by a touchdown. That's why I picked them, Brad. And I realize I don't get a win. I get a push, which means I get a draw. So I really should have went back and picked the Eagles, and that was the case.
And by the way, Brad's not going to like to hear this, but if you think about it, through the first 5 weeks of the season, the only quarterback to really play a solid game against the Jets was Dak Prescott.
Yeah, right.
Now, overall, it wasn't gaudy numbers, 255 and 2 touchdowns, but he was 31 of 38. But remember, Allen in week 1 had multiple turnovers.
Allen was terrible in week 1. Oh, my God.
Mac Jones is Mac Jones, and he did nothing to help them win that game.
Prescott almost threw a pick 6 against us, too, if you remember. Gardner, right? Sauce drop.
Gardner should have had a pick 6.
Right.
And then in week 4, and then think about week 4, Mahomes played
not good at all.
Arguably one of the worst games of Mahomes' career. And Russell Wilson was absolute dog.
Yeah, and Russell Wilson was playing well.
Quarterbacks against the New York Jets have really struggled, and I could see at times in this game Jalen Hurts actually struggling in this game.
Well, I just don't trust the Jets to win this game because I don't think Zach Wilson against the Philadelphia Eagles defense.
And they're going to have a hard time stopping that run.
Yeah, I just don't trust them. I can't go out and say I'm going to pick the Jets to outright win the game, but I think the defense can make enough plays, hang in there. The last 2 weeks, what they did against Mahomes and Wilson tells me that the Jets can be competitive, but it's hard for me to pick against the Eagles right now.
One message to the New York Jets defense: stop starting slow. The first half, they're getting killed on third downs every single time. And then the second half,
I have before we get to closing thoughts. You know what my joke is? It's almost like the Jets defense in the first quarter is like Carlos Carrasco in the first inning. But bump, drum roll, please.
Oh. I think that's a little too harsh there. That's getting beat down.
Well, I think it's a fair statement because Carlos Carrasco, after the first inning, like his ERA as a Met was under 4. Like he was like usually like he would.
It was 2021 and 2023. Last year, 2022, he actually had a pretty decent year. But this past year and 2021 was absolutely
after the first. Carlos Carrasco after the first inning, like he pitched fine. It was like I've never seen it before. He would just start out. It was like, okay, yep, I can't pitch. So, but that's here nor there. That's what we think this week. Obviously, we've got a very close race here in the NFL for our fantasy picks here in Sportzwire Radio. Rob Maraska is leading it, but guys like certainly Chris Pizzea, Patrick Tridy, although he's going to probably take a big step down this week. The brute force, Brad Weiss, very much alive. Anthony Finkel, John Gonzalez, Rob Maraska, maybe Justin Gianelli makes a step up. Billy McInerney, our old friend from the old SoundCloud days, is still alive there. And some Sportswire Radio guys, some nobody there is also in the mix of the standings. But that's here nor there. Let's get to closing thoughts here. Justin, I'm going with you first. I appreciate the baseball banter. I know Randy had said when he came on the show to open up for us that he is going to give us a hockey fan chat with you and him. So I got 2 for the price of really 3 for the price of 1 because I have your show from last week that I'm still playing. So I give you the floor now. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? Floor is yours.
All right. So last week we went 3-0 on the 3 locks of the week. So now we're 8-7 on the year.
Not bad.
Off the top of my head, I know that I went over with Breece Hall in the rushing yards and Cooper Kupp in receiving yards, and we went over in the CJ Stroud passing yards. Got that by 2 yards in last week's Houston Texans game. But this week we're going we're going a little different here. The first one we're going with is Damian. We're staying with the Texans. Dameon Pierce, over 54.5 rushing yards. I'm going to take Tyler Lockett, over 53.5 receiving yards. And the number I have from FanDuel for the Bills and Giants is 15.5. So give me the Bills minus 15.5 as the 3 locks of the week. So far, 8-7 on the year. Things have picked up over the last couple of weeks. Let's see if we get you 3 more locks this week. Like you mentioned, a couple of baseball banters are in the system, talking about the postseason. And now I'll get set to start previewing the National League Championship and American League Championship Series with the ALCS starting on Sunday. You have another off day for baseball tomorrow. But Sunday night is game 1, Houston and Texas. It's pretty interesting to see that 3 West Coast teams and then there's Philly. We obviously have a 50-50 chance at a possible repeat of last year's matchup between Houston and Philadelphia. And a lot of that episode 2 is also going to cover the failures of the Braves and the Dodgers, because if you think about it, and I saw this stat and it's wild. The last 5 postseasons Ronald Acuna has participated. So obviously 2021 doesn't count. They won the World Series that year and he did not play.
22, 23, 20,
and 19.
Yeah.
Only 2020 did the Braves get out of the NLDS in Ronald Acuna's career. So 3 out of the last 4 postseasons for Acuna, the Braves have been first round exits. So something's got to give for the Atlanta Braves as well. I mean, how do they consistently win 100 games every year and fall flat on their face in the first round?
Listen,
they got the 2021 World Series to back it up, but at some point that's gonna get a little old, and the failures like the Dodgers, that's gonna become a major question and talking point too. So that's gonna be part of the next baseball banter. Like you mentioned, I was on the Hockey Fan Chat with Randy Dillon previewing the NHL season just underway. Tough loss for the Devils tonight. They lose in the shootout 4-3, so they pick up a point. 1-0-1 to start the young season, and surprisingly, we're still waiting on the New York Islanders.
I think
they're the last team to debut,
which is bizarre. So bizarre. The Islanders.
If I'm not mistaken, after last night, 28 of the 32 teams have debuted, and tonight was Arizona. It was actually Arizona's season debut, but so it'd be great, But there's lots of expectations for the Devils this year. Yep. Solid start, I'd say, so far. Although I don't think they've played great in the first 2 games, but you get a win against the Red Wings, and you lose in the shootout tonight to the Coyotes.
Yeah, 1-0.
Okay, honestly, it's an okay start. I'll give it a C start. Jack Hughes has 5 points. He's off to a fast start. And as Wayne Gretzky says, he's basically his favorite player in the league.
Yep,
I heard that. That's high praise from 99. But other than that, you can follow me on Twitter or X at JGNelly12, on Instagram at JGNelly91, and we'll talk again soon, and hopefully more locks of the week get us W's.
Absolutely. And before I get to Chris, John Gonzalez is done. I think he's done not for the evening. Actually, he has one more comment, but I think in terms of picking, he's frustrated. Rob Maraska's only leading because at his age, you start getting visions from God. Well, he's probably been alive since God existed.
Wow.
So that's his cousin. He knows him. He's a lot old. Rob is a lot older than Jodell. Rob is, he's a senior citizen. He's got an AARP card. He's probably, he's old. He's an old fart. I don't want to put it out there, but he's old. Some guys, like there was a picture the other day of Sammy Hagar, and Sammy Hagar 76, and he looked like he was like 45. And Rob Maraska, Rob Maraska, God bless him, but he didn't look it. Some people, they don't carry it as well. I hope I get to carry well. But Chris, I'm going to move away from that. I don't want to attack my elders as much anymore because I'll certainly get in further trouble from that. So I'm going to give you the floor, give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? Floor is yours.
Guys, great show as always, Tom. Thank you. We're going to be previewing the League Championship Series probably on Monday. We'll get you the show for the Talking Rivals. And the one thing we were talking about last week was, have we ever seen a pitcher like Clayton Kershaw, first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt, be so bad in the playoffs?
Greg Maddux.
Every year.
Greg Maddux, maybe.
Yeah, I thought he was solid. I didn't think he was as bad.
I think he had a 500 career record, though, in the playoffs. He was 500, like 15 and 14.
I know Kershaw is, too. But I don't think the ERA was bad for Maddux.
No. I think that
Kershaw is almost 2 runs higher in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I think that's where
bad.
You're correct. Yeah.
I mean, maybe this last game boosted it up a little bit too, but no, it's strange. It's amazing how good he is. And I mean, the guy's money in the regular season, and then when it comes to the playoffs, it's just the total.
Yeah, Maddux 11 and 14, but his ERA was 3.27, so you can't kill him for
still not great though. You're right. Yeah, Maddux, you expect
ERA is not bad.
Yeah,
3.27, can't kill him for that.
No, but. Yeah, we were just discussing that even before we started recording, and even during. It's just an amazing thing. But anyway, you got 2 good matchups, right? In Texas, I think that's going to be great, and then of course Philly and the D-backs. I wonder if MLB is going to be, really not rooting for the D-backs. I don't think they want Arizona, Texas, or Arizona, Houston.
Well, that's what John wants. John wants Texas and Arizona. That's what he wants.
Yeah. And that's what Patrick wants too, because he had the D-backs before the season started.
Brad's friend had the parlay, Texas and Arizona.
And good luck to them. Hopefully they hit. And with the Jets too. We're going to be talking probably Wednesday. We'll do the podcast. I think the Jet game is going to come down to three results, right? For the Jets' point of view, either we lose and Zach looks solid, and you feel good going into the bye. They lose and he looks really bad going into the bye, and then we still got the big question mark with him, or he looks good and we win, right? And hopefully they do win. That's what I'm hoping for. I don't know if they will, but hopefully they'll at the very least keep it close. Don't embarrass yourself like the Giants have been doing every week.
Oh my God.
On national TV, on primetime games. So we'll see. But you know what? You can hit me up, CP7NY, at Talking Rivals, at Liftoff Jets. And we'll see you guys next week.
Kershaw, 13 and 13, 4.49 ERA in the postseason.
Yeah.
Yep.
Similar to Maddux with a higher ERA. Yep.
And Chris, the screams are going to be loud for the next 2 weeks if Zach Wilson does not play well.
Oh, absolutely.
You got a bye week.
With the trade deadline looming shortly, I believe after the Tuesday after the Giants game. I mean, he has to play well, or else it's going to be 2 weeks of nonstop. Go get Kirk Cousins. It's going to be.
I
don't get the love affair by some fans. Oh, we should go get Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins can't win a big game.
I will, but okay.
And I got 60 seconds on this because I want to get to Brad's close.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
The quick retort to that is, I believe that this would be arguably one of the best rosters he's ever played on, especially best defense for sure.
Yeah, the defense, but offense, he's had good offenses. I mean, you can't. So I don't know. I wouldn't.
I'll tell you what. If the Jets don't win this week, Justin ain't wrong, and I'm sure it's a topic that.
No, but if we do lose, for example, he looks bad and we lose. Now we're 2-4. Forget about the playoffs.
Now with the schedule lightening up.
Yeah, it does. You're right, but I don't know. I'm still.
Well, we got the Giants off the bye. We should win that game.
You hope so.
Chargers is probably a pure toss-up. Raiders, probably pure toss-up. We lose in Buffalo. We lose to Miami. Atlanta, Brad's team, is a pure toss-up. Texans, pure. I mean, there's a lot of games that they could win, but we'll see. If they don't win this week, we'll see. Before I get to you, Brad, 3 more things from John. He wants Arizona and Texas, and I kind of want Arizona and Texas myself, and Patrick said it because I think Houston's been there. Let's see somebody else in Philadelphia. I don't know. Tom, I'm better at picking my nose this season than picking NFL games. Well, let's hope you pick better because we don't want you to pick your nose. The brute hex is real. I'm the new Jabu. He finally got me. Well, let's see. But we certainly didn't save the best for last, but we saved the biggest for last, the brute force Brad Weiss. I hope you didn't put a hex on the New York Liberty. I'm sure you'll spend a few minutes on that and some other closing thoughts here before we say goodnight. So I turn it over to you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, Tom, thank you for another great week of the show. Thank you, Chris, Justin, obviously Randy Dillon, who started the show for another great week. You can follow me at bwise20 and at Coach Brad Weiss on Instagram, searching at Brad Weiss20 on Twitter and /X, and then also on Facebook, searching Bradley Weiss. So I'm going to keep my closing thoughts relatively short this week. I'll address the team you just mentioned real quick. Obviously, it's been very deflating the first 2 games of the New York Liberty finals against the Aces. They've kicked our butt both times, and it's been rough to watch. But certainly, hopefully, that as you said, Tom, a rising tide lifts all boats. Hopefully, something gets there right.
Sunday, 3 o'clock. Better be there or the season's over.
They better show up and they better win that game. And if they do, I'll probably show up on Wednesday to Game 4. I'm going to try to get there. And that's the day before my birthday, so hopefully they can at least give me a little bit of a gift and give me a hope that they can go into Game 5 and have a chance to win the finals. But getting swept would be a very hard feeling for us Liberty fans. But hopefully they can come out in Game 3 and play inspired basketball. With that being said, speaking of inspired basketball, I had my first tournament last week with Level Up Long Island out in the Brooklyn Crown Heights section.
Yes.
I was over there. Both my teams made it to the championship game. Unfortunately, one of them lost in overtime, and the other one blew a 10-point lead in the second half and lost by 4. So it was a rough weekend in regards to the results and how it went. But at the same time, it was the first tournament for both teams, relatively new teams. Getting to the championship game and competing against good teams is nothing to sneeze at for me, especially in the first tournament and only having a few practices. So I am proud of them. With that being said, we got more work to do. Follow us at levelup_LI on all social media platforms for some of the stuff we're doing. Long Island Nets season keeps inching closer and closer. I was just at the Coliseum yesterday, picking up some stuff from Wade Richardson, the great Wade Richardson.
Yes.
Getting myself ready for the season. So we have a Fan Fest clinic in the next couple of weeks, so we're excited about that, getting ready for the beginning of the next season. And as you mentioned, Tom Bryce, we got the beginning of college season closing in.
Yep.
The high school season is now officially 1 month away from starting with tryouts. And I spoke to the legendary John Perez as well over Instagram chats. So we are talking about potentially getting us some varsity media. We'll see what happens.
I hope to cover that. I hope.
Ultimately, there's a lot of exciting things in basketball. You said, Tom, I can't be more excited to talk college basketball, high school basketball, local basketball. I think it's going to be a lot of fun this year. And I actually got to see another man who came home for 2 days, James DeSimone, last night. He came and said hello. He said goodbye to Jason Getz, who's on his way to the Marines next week. We're excited to see.
What a time to be going to the Marines if you follow what's going on in the world.
Yeah, it's definitely a crazy time to do that. But James was here. He looks great. We're excited to see what he's going to do at Mr. Cordia in the next couple of weeks. So, again, a lot to be excited about in the world of basketball. We'll see what happens in baseball. The only thing I'd push back on you guys about Texas making it to the World Series is that I really do not want to see Scherzer and DeGrom win a World Series potentially and get there.
They won't even be active members, though.
I know, but it's just not pleasing as much. I mean, I know the worst thing is that the Phillies win. For some reason, something's telling me they're going to win. The worst thing would be because, again, you've had the Washington Nationals win a World Series. You got the Atlanta Braves winning a World Series. You got the Phillies winning a World Series if they win this year. Okay? You have the Marlins making 2 or 3 playoff appearances, and you got the Mets who've done absolutely nothing. So it definitely puts us in the doghouse if Philadelphia figures it out. They're already ahead of us in appearances the last couple of years. So it's definitely a deflating feeling as a Mets fan, but we'll see what happens, and ultimately we'll see what happens in the world of sports. And just to reiterate my point, ladies and gentlemen, be confident in the Detroit Lions this week. They're going to make you proud. They're going to make me proud. They're going to make Tom Rice proud. They're going to make John Gonzalez proud. They are one of the best teams in the NFL, specifically in the NFC. I'll say that. So thank you, Tom Bryce. Another great week of the show. Can't wait for next week as well. And next week I'll be a new age, so I'll be a little older.
Happy birthday to you, and certainly I hope it's a great one. Maybe the Liberty will provide you an early birthday present, and you'll be at the game. We'll see. Keep our fingers crossed. You can follow you on Instagram at bweiss20, Coach Brad Weiss as well. Also Twitter, Brad Weiss20. Also Facebook, Bradley Weiss. I put some of them on the ticker underneath. You can also check all of our shows here as well. For now, on a new dial, but we certainly hope to get a website back because the old website, unfortunately, my predecessor apparently let it lapse. So that's on my predecessor. So hopefully my predecessor will give me that back. But in the meantime, I want to thank Jodell, who also says, great show, guys. Good night. God bless. Thank you for that. And somebody's going in interesting territory because he's thinking about what somebody like Kelsey Plum looks like from the backside, basically. He's going to Anthony Finkel territory. But yes, she's an attractive woman.
John.
She's an attractive woman, but isn't she married to a New York Giant? So I mean,
yeah,
I think
Darren Waller.
Yeah, another winner. But yeah, so she's off the market. But let's see her on the court. I'm sure she'll do a great job. But we'll see if our Liberty can come through and do all great stuff. But obviously, I'm very excited about John. I'm looking forward to college basketball season. I want to congratulate Justin's old friend, Mr. Zach Weiss, because he's calling a Big East game tomorrow. He's actually calling one I saw earlier today. So congratulations to Zach. But obviously, again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in here tonight. And if you are on all of our platforms, thank you for tuning in. Thank you to John Gonzalez of the Sports Authorities Group. Thank you also to Randy Dillon of the Hockey Fan Chat for opening things up tonight. Also, thank you to Jodell, Anthony Finkel, Ron, also everybody else that's a part of the Sportswire team in our picks group, also the Talking Rivals, Liftoff Jets, Baseball Banter. Looking forward to hearing it. I also want to thank the Giving Receipts guys, Fletch and Jaden, for giving us another show. We have 4 shows in the tank for them. Also, the Work in Progress guys, Sit Down Marks. Also want to thank the Pinstripe Chronicles, Neil Villapiano, Devil's State of Mind. Have a lot of great shows ahead in the future. TBK, the Baltimore Kid Be More Talkative podcast. We have a lot more in the tank. We have Wrestling with the Truth with BC Hunter. Also, he just celebrated a birthday. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the games. I'll be back here Sunday night, 8 o'clock with the legendary C2K. But in the meantime, we were here with Justin Gianelli, host of the Baseball Banter, Chris Pizzea, host of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rivals, and the Brute Force Bradley Weiss, 27th all-time in SJLI men's basketball history and rebounds. Also near the top of the list all-time in block shots. He's the head coach of the boys' JV team at Plainview JFK, also with Level Up and Long Island Nets. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice of all wrestling, the host of the Sports Report, the owner of Sportswire Radio, the #1 global radio station. If you're on Sportswire Radio listening to us now, you'll go back to your regularly scheduled programming. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, on the #1 global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.